Hey, what's going on out there, my Jets family? I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. I'm excited to be here with you guys. I know you're pumped. I know you're freaking pumped to be here. Man, this is awesome. Victory freaking Monday, man. And on top of that, I got Jeremy, Mr. Jets Chaos here, and Adam at Wicker Sports Media, New York Wicker Sports Media. Appreciate you guys, gentlemen. How you guys doing on this Victory Monday?
I'm feeling good. And let me tell you, I'm feeling good because 2-2 is just so nice. But that fourth quarter that Zach played woke up that thing. And I know you feel it with me, Harrison. Like a year ago, we had so much faith in Zach and we were so excited about him. And so many people have been doubting him and throwing, shade his way and even making me doubt it myself. And then what he did in that fourth quarter, just to everybody that's been doubting him, everybody that says he can't, how many times in the chat, in my shows, your shows, and these shows, people will come out and say, Zach can't play in the NFL. He came from a small school, BYU. The game is too fast for him. He can't be an NFL quarterback. Look, I'm not going to say and jump ahead of myself and say anything about the rest of his career. But if you watch that fourth quarter, you can no longer say that Zach Wilson is not capable of playing in the NFL because he played as well as any NFL quarterback can play in a quarter of football. And I just want to say right now, receipts, baby, receipts.
Oh, you know what? I just want to say this. Harrison, Jeremy, everybody who will be watching the show, I hereby proclaim, welcome to relevant October football. This is not something that we are familiar with as Jets fans. We're used to being done by Columbus Day or whatever you want to call the day nowadays. I could say that. I could say this. It was an absolute roller coaster. We thought Cleveland was a roller coaster. In this game, we went up, we went down, we got spun all around. I think a couple of times we went upside down. My gosh, they came out strong. The most encouraging thing that I saw was the fourth quarter burst. And yes, Zach Wilson had a lot to do with it. But there have been too many times under the last couple of years, and certainly under Robert Saleh, where we were thinking to ourselves, you know what? They're not adjusting at halftime. Where's the extra gear? Where's the extra fight to pull out a close game? And you know what? Through the end of the second quarter and through the third quarter, it wasn't looking very good. I really wondered if the Jets had the fight in them. But they started to turn it around. The pass rush really got involved. The offensive line started blocking a little bit better in certain spots. They started to find their way. Certain players who have been absolutely vilified made enormous plays. And here we are, 2-2, with a chance. 7 days from now, we could be tied for first place in the AFC East. Don't tell me I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm looking forward, and I'm freaking excited, and I make no apologies.
You shouldn't, man. You shouldn't. And we all should be excited. I put it out, earlier. Freaking this Victory Monday, man. It's a unique one. We're 2-2 for the first time since 2017. And we want to, last year was Robert Saleh's first year, Zach's first year figuring it all out. But now we already have at week 4 half the wins that we had last year. And we're only at week 4. We have and I looked this up too because I love this fact as well. We currently have a better record than 10 other NFL teams. Like you said, everyone always digging on the Jets, talking crap about our team. We're always the joke. Well, right now we're not, tied better than 10 teams, including the Patriots. We're not at the bottom of the AFC East. 500 is a great place to be, especially this early in the season, because everyone knows, and I talked about it yesterday. I was on Liam's show, Italy Jets, awesome dude, talked about in football, it's any given Sunday. Momentum means everything. You guys remember, I think I mentioned it with you. My biggest take was when Zach comes back, I wanted the momentum going. I wanted that offense firing. I wanted their confidence at 100. This is it, man. This could be that big step. We already got 2. Why can't we have 8? Why can't we have 9? Why can't we potentially sneak into the playoffs as a wild card? Like, get excited, man.
How could you not? How could you not? Now, But hey, let's think about a couple of things. We got through that gauntlet. There were certain experts who were predicting 0-9, certain former quarterbacks, certain fantasy experts on through various major cable networks who immediately wrote the Jets off from the beginning. Well, you know what? It's a long way to go, and this team still has a lot of growing to do. There will be some games when there are still going to be a lot of games when they really disappoint us, and there will be games when they shock us for the better. That's just part of a young coaching staff plus young players. It's not one side or the other. It's both. So I'm really thinking about my expectations. Look who's coming in the background. Hey, Jeremy's brother.
If anybody needed to know who that was, Jets
That's a cameo.
That was the trivia answer.
What would have been amazing is we see him and we're like, wait a minute, is that some celebrity? Wait a minute, is that Bradley Cooper? Who's your cousin?
Jets Mess will tell you exactly who that was. He's the answer. That's his nickname. So
I didn't know any celebrities went to Vancouver, Washington, but okay, I guess I learned something. They're all waiting for the food trucks, I guess, down there in Portland is what they're doing. But no, you have to be pumped up about this. But these games just change so much. I got to tell you one thing. Before the season, outside of Buffalo, the game I was least positive about was going to Denver, because that was the only team that shut the Jets out last year. They have the pass rush. Just playing in that stadium is brutal. But Denver looks like a discombobulated mess right now. Between the coaching, Russell Wilson is not the same player. They lost Javonte Williams for the season. The defense is not doing what they were supposed to have been doing. And all of a sudden, it's like, wait a second, that's a game that we could very well win. The whole season, each week is a novella unto itself. It just changes. When you think you have the NFL figured out, it just turns all over again. It's like a snow globe. It's like shaking a snow globe. And right now, the Jets are sitting to be in pretty good spot. We got to start cutting out those bad mistakes, though. That's the biggest thing. We can't beat ourselves because there's a lot of good teams in the AFC, and they're not going to take dumb penalties. They're probably not going to be dropping a whole lot of passes. I'm talking about the Baltimores, the Kansas Cities, the Buffaloes, those types of teams. So those roughing the passer penalties, Carlos, I love you, my man, but you can't be doing that.
Veteran mistake, man. And it's a key. Mistakes, it depends. It could have not meant anything. We're sitting there in the fourth quarter like, okay, we're down by 3, but this game could be tied. When a mistake compounds to that kind of thing, it's an issue, and especially from a veteran. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. That's
look,
huge.
As a fan base, going back to the way we started the year, you say we're better than 10 teams and we're 2-2, and there are two critical things, and we'll get it. Sure, we're going to get into the details of all the players and everything at a more micro level. But the two things that really we needed, I think, very badly as a fan base with this new regime is we needed to see, number one, above all else, improvement. And there was some scary moments, even throughout into this game in the second and third quarter, where the question kept raising and being brought up again and saying, aside from the talent on the roster, I never doubted that, because there's no way you can doubt the talent that's on this roster compared to 2 years ago. But where's the improvement of this team? I think being 2-2, seeing the way they bounced back, you could say, well, the number one measure of improvement aside from the talent is that this is the first Jets team in a long time that does not give up. So they improved in we knew the talent was there, but the level of competitiveness and the will to stay in the game, to fight back, not give up, is a huge improvement from the team that we've been rooting for and watching for a long time now. And then secondly, we came into the season, I think, all understanding this. We needed to see Zach Wilson take a step. Yesterday, that fourth quarter was a gigantic step.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, man, without a doubt. On that point of before, literally with the not giving up, you nailed it on the head. Because we look at both of these games, they were comeback wins. One was literally stolen. We stole that win. We joked about that. Like they were giving it to the Browns already. Like they were talking about what it was like for the Browns to go 2-0. They hadn't done it since it was like It doesn't matter anymore because they didn't. Well, I think it was like 93 or something. They were talking about it. And the Jets came back. And this was a comeback again, win from behind. Salah said it both times. You got to love that in the guys, to not give up, to not quit. That's one of the most important things because, like we were saying, anything can happen at any point. Obviously, you get the momentum going. We can hopefully score quicker, get more points, maybe get some leads. That'd be nice. But you got to keep that going because you can win like that. That's 2 big wins. That's what we said with the answer. We got Mr. Lee Cravat.
Go
Is that
Jets.
who we got?
Go Jets. Jets.
Does Lee have his hot sauce ready to go for tonight? You got some hot sauce in that house over there?
Oh, he has hot sauce in his house. He won't be caught dead without
hot sauce on everything.
That's too funny, man. That's too funny. But I'd love to.
And another thing, it's not just you mentioned the players not giving in, not quitting. It's also a matter of the coaches not quitting on the team, because I felt Adam Gase, to me, one of the biggest things. It wasn't just his personality. It wasn't the big eyes, because at the end of the day, who cares? There were too many times when I felt the Jets would get the ball back with like 45 seconds to go with a punt, like on their own 20-yard line. He'd start taking knees. That type of thing. Just a quitting, defeatist attitude. And no matter what kind of talent they might have had on those teams, even if they took a win, even if they did grab a win, the wins always felt a little bit hollow because you never felt like that kind of a coaching staff was ever going to create anything that we were going to be truly proud of. And they never did. And that's why these wins now, they start to feel like these are the best feeling wins the Jets have had in 6-7 years. I'm serious when I say that, because you can see the vision. You can see this young core coming together. They love playing together. They love playing for the coaching staff, and it's all working. With every win, the confidence is growing just a little bit more. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but next week we all watch Flight 2022, I'm guessing. Episode 5. Robert Saleh in the film room. What's he talking about? The AFC East. How many games they've lost in a row, how much they've been outscored by, 16.6 points per game. And the slogan is already there in Florham Park. It's 3 simple words: own the East. And that's the mentality that we got to start having.
Yeah, and that's a great mentality to have. That's what you want to have. I believe it was, I don't remember exactly when. I think it was like right before the season. It was one of the Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh press conferences. And Joe Douglas talked about that. He mentioned, you got to win the division. You have to play well in the division. It's a big factor. It really is. In our division, I mean, right now we are, better than the Patriots, which is awesome. Got to love that. But we still got the Bills. And the Bills are, I hate to say it, but man, the Bills are a tough team. They're a top team. So, I mean, we got Miami coming up. I mean, Tua's out. So that's big. I mean, it sucks, obviously, everything that happened with him, of course, but him being out changes the entire dynamic.
I don't get too much overconfidence for it because of the beating Bridgewater gave us last year. And I do think that, yes, Tua had, there was a kind of comeback situation. I'm not taking anything away from Tua. I've defended him for a couple of years now. I'm not saying he's a star, but I've defended him against people that have automatically declared him a bust. I don't know, and this is not a discredit to Tua, but it's more of a compliment to Bridgewater. I don't know if it's a giant drop-off to where it's not the same thing as like, obviously not playing against Deshaun Watson and playing against Jacoby Brissett. I think that Bridgewater's pretty good, and especially with the weapons that the Dolphins have, I still am very nervous about that. Like, we're still going to have to come out, and I think they're just as dangerous because of those weapons. And I think we're going to have to really, really get that defensive line to have that first half again, like that first quarter, with the sacks and the pressure. We're really going to have to be at our best and make Bridgewater really uncomfortable. And we're going to have to improve sealing the edge. We really have to start sealing the edge. So when we do that pass rush, we still have to protect the edge, because Bridgewater is enough of an athlete that he will eat us alive if we get our pass rushers sucked up out of their lanes and leave the edge wide open.
Hmm. The one thing I would say with Bridgewater, and I definitely respect his ability. I mean, it seems as though it seems like he's been around a long time, and yet he still feels young. He's had a very weird career where he's just always kind of hanging around. But he doesn't really run unless he absolutely has to. I think in the last 2 years, because the last 2 years is where he really started a full season. He's averaging less than 4 yards per run. So they really don't want him to run unless he absolutely has to. I think after the knee injuries, I don't think his knees are quite what they used to be. So I'm not so worried about the running threat, which is one thing to take out of that. But what's interesting to me, I did a little bit of preliminary look at the Dolphins while I had some time today, and it's really interesting. You have outside of Hill and Waddle, it's kind of hard to name too many wide receivers on that team because those are far and away their two most targeted players. Mike Gesicki has been targeted 10 times this season in 4 games. For all the money that they franchised him, as I recall, and he just doesn't get a whole lot of attention. Now, does that change with Teddy Bridgewater coming back? We don't know, but that is definitely something to pay attention to. So, yeah, I got to tell you, the more I think about this game, I'm worried that I'm getting more confident about it. And I'm really trying to watch myself. But I'm starting to feel like we have 2 corners that can match these wide receivers. If there's a cornerback tandem in the league that can, it very well may be the Jets. And I expect Miami to score their points. But I really think that the Jets could score a lot of points against the Miami defense as well. I really think the offense is about to break out. Even with as beat up as they are on the offensive line, as beat up as they are, I think they're starting to figure out where their bread is buttered, how to attack defenses right now. I think it's starting to come together. I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg with this Jets offense.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, man. I completely agree, especially offense-wise. With the game coming up, it's really big. I mean, we win this game, we're 3-2. That's huge. That's a really big deal. Pivoting back to this game though, the last one, I definitely wanted to talk to you guys about Zach Wilson because that's the big topic, right? That's the topic, the obvious topic of conversation. And I saw it, especially when everyone thought that he wasn't doing as well. And I disagreed at the time. So that's why I have a different take on Zach Wilson. I know everyone was either that he wasn't that good because the stats were bad or he was okay. I actually feel very good about Zach Wilson. Surprising, I know most people don't feel that way, but I really do. I feel like you look at those 2 interceptions, I didn't think either one was really his fault. The first one was a risky throw, but I actually made a lot of sense with what he said later in the game. I have it right here after the game in a press conference. They were interviewing him after, and I put out, that he says his mentality is just keep doing my job, just keep doing my job, keep chipping away and relaying that message. Everybody keeps fighting. Then he went on to continue to say, I feel like I have a bit of a different mentality this year. It's do my job, give it everything I've got, and live to play with the result. I felt like, and this was interesting. He felt that for the first time, our offense wasn't as stagnant or timid as it was. I thought that was an interesting. Okay, so that's we're getting it going, which is really exciting. He said he 100% expected to score at the end, but I think it's taking chances. I think that's the biggest thing. It's him taking chances, and that first interception. People, forget we're looking at it from the top. From the top, it's a different view. We have to remember Zach's in the backfield with 6'5", 6'6" offensive linemen in front of him. The defense of the Steelers is good, and that safety was covered very well. I don't think he saw him. I honestly don't think he did. He made a risky throw. It was a bad read. Okay. And the second one, it hit Conklin in the hands. Like it was a little high, but you're a tight end and it hit you in the hands. In my opinion, if you're a tight end and it touches your hands, it's 100% on you, like 100 on you.
No
so it was a little high, but so I felt, that. But when I watched him, I loved the dynamic he was bringing to the offense. I felt like he was poised in the pocket, making really good throws, anticipating well, standing in there well with the line collapsing, like you mentioned, Adam, because we've got a makeshift offensive line right now. Excuse me, and he scrambled out of the pocket a bit, but didn't really run, which I actually kind of like. He tried to open up and make a throw, and a lot of times he wound up throwing it out of bounds, but it was a better dynamic. It was okay. Instead of running, he tried to open up the field and potentially go deeper, and I felt he was throwing the ball into tight windows. He looked really, really accurate, even though the numbers didn't show that. And then he comes back in the fourth quarter, and the numbers were excellent because, again, felt he was playing good the whole game, but makeshift offensive line, he was under a lot of pressure, wasn't able to get the ball off as well. So that was my interesting take. I think Zach was much better than a lot of people are saying.
Well, I think that first of all, his escapability is elite. Elite. And it's not an overstatement. It's not a homer type of statement. If you watch what he escapes in the pocket, he's a magician. And he's probably top 5 quarterback in the NFL in sensing guys coming from behind, from his blind side, and his escapability and athleticism. He's already showing that he's incredibly special in that area. If Joe Flacco's in that game, we probably have 2 strip sacks out of that, like 2 fumbles or turnovers, definitely more sacks. So Zach saved us in that regard because he's able to keep the drives alive. And I think that what Zach also brought us was we finally got that exposure we wanted when we thought about the 3 receivers. We think we have Elijah Moore, we have Garrett Wilson, we have Corey Davis. How are they going to cover all 3? Well, yesterday we finally saw Zach really transfer that problem to the defense. And what happened was they're having to give help to cover Elijah. And then they got Garrett, and there was Corey Davis. And we finally saw the Corey Davis we signed. I mean, we saw flashes of it, but second half of that game was the Corey Davis show. And it was everything why we signed him, everything about his ability, why we paid him the money, everything Adam believed and knew that we had in this wide receiver. We saw it yesterday, the big catches. But what it was what we all dreamed about, the problem that we believed we were going to present to the defense of other teams. You have to cover Elijah. You have to cover Garrett Wilson. How are you going to cover all 3? And then when they did, and they had to commit a safety, or they had to commit more to slowing down Corey Davis, there was no one left to get Conklin. It makes me really want to play the 11 personnel. I really want 3 receivers and Conklin out there. I want all 3 guys, especially in passing downs, because I don't know how defenses are going to stop it. And I think that we finally saw that transpire yesterday. The Steelers had no answer for Corey Davis, and when they did, Conklin exposed it because there was no one left to cover Conklin. So Zach made that possible because he was able to buy time, he's able to be mobile, and especially in the fourth quarter, what we saw was when he's playing in instinct, when the real Zach comes out and he's not overthinking, it's not about the playbook, he was decisive and he was accurate. And I loved it. And I think this could be, that fourth quarter may have been Zach's breakout. It may have been years from now, when we look back at his career, that was the quarter, that was the moment that we saw the birth of Zach Wilson.
At the beginning of the season, a lot of us on various shows were talking about what we wanted to see from Zach Wilson this season. When I thought about it, I didn't think about touchdowns. I didn't think about interceptions. I didn't think about yardage. I didn't even think about a certain number of wins. I wanted to see this quarterback in adverse conditions, losing the game, take this team down the field for the winning score. And this was the first time we got to see.
Would be nice to get some leads. I mean,
what are those? No, we got no.
What?
No, we did this time. We definitely did this time. For a little while, the 20 it is now more than 22 seconds of leading after the first 3 games. So that is good. But no, that was what I wanted. I wanted to see that leadership, that confidence, and I know we go back to the word very often, but it's a very good word, the poise. And I think that was one of the things that we didn't know if he had it, because you could point to the short throws that were off target. You could talk about him, not taking a few miles off the fastball when he has a short throw in front of him. That may have had something to do with the Conklin pick when it went through Conklin's hands. But at the end of the day, I agree that that interception is on Tyler Conklin first and foremost. So and another thing that I really was happy about, I felt like he knew when to take a chance and when not to take a chance. His in-game decision-making worked well. And Jeremy, you said it very well. When Elijah Moore I don't think he had a target. He definitely didn't have a catch in the second half. I know that. So he was taking what the defense was giving him. They were rotating coverages. I think Pittsburgh was very concerned about Garrett Wilson early on. They wanted to take him out of the game. And up until the fourth quarter, they were able to do that until he had that 36-yard catch and run on down early in the fourth quarter, which propelled the Jets to that touchdown on that touchdown drive. And it was such a big deal. I'm not sure who Sarah is. No, I know who you mean, Rusty. We know who you meant by that, but it's all good. So, it's good. It's good to see you. It is very good to see you. So,
Yeah, Rusty, what's up?
This was definitely a growing up moment for Zach Wilson. Now you have to build up on it because Miami, I got to tell you, Miami's defense ain't that great. It's this. They got some players on the team. Javon Holland is an amazing safety, and they have some legitimate pass rushers in Phillips and Ogba. They brought in Melvin Ingram, but they're giving up over 400 yards per game, that defense is. So I think the offense is getting so much attention there that the defense is being overlooked. And I got to tell you, I don't think, especially with Xavier Howard a little bit banged up, if Howard's limited, oh my gosh, they ain't got a chance to cover all three, plus Tyler Conklin. And by the way, is there a more infuriating player that you can remember as a Jet than Tyler Conklin? Like, the highs are so high, but the lows are so low. I swear, every time you want to believe in Tyler Conklin, you have a drop like he had, like the first drop he had early in the game, but then he will make that big third down catch going across the middle of the field. And he had another gear today. I mean, watching him the first couple of games, I thought I didn't know if the field was made out of quicksand, but his legs were just filled with lead, but it felt like he was just running slow motion. But he had a little bit of an extra gear in this game. I really liked what I saw from him.
Well, let me tell you something about Conklin, how he redeemed himself at the end, and it won't be talked about as much because Breece Hall got the touchdown. If Breece Hall doesn't get that ball past the goal line, he saved the game by recovering the fumble.
It was Conklin who recovered it. Okay.
Yeah, he recovered that. So if he didn't break the plane, Conklin was the savior to that game.
Yeah, but he did. I mean, it was obvious to me at first. Like, I love it. I think shout out to the Jets account because I think they were like, "That's a touchdown," and then immediately they were like, "We knew it." And I was like, that's perfect," because we all knew it. Like, they showed the replay and it was clear the ball across the plane. So I knew. Like, I mean, it is the Jets. So I guess there's that off chance that they're like, "We didn't see it. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not a touchdown." But I was freaking out already, man. I was like, Breece got it. This is great. It was just awesome, man. But you mentioned the defense before, and I think it was, shout out to Rusty, shout out to all you guys, in the chat. I always mention, bring your comments, let me know what you're thinking, tell us if you agree or disagree, let us know. But, with the defense specifically, two big things that we needed to see were the edge rushers. And the safeties hadn't been playing well. I thought it was funny, it was earlier in the week. I think it was actually Paul. Shout out to Paul, Paul Eston, Boy Green. He put out a video of Mike Tomlin saying how good the Jets safeties were, and that was his fear in the defense. And I was like, wait.
Adams and Maybach?
did you mean Sauce and DJ and got confused? Like, wait. But dude, they were awesome. Joyner and him, 2 touchdowns. Joyner, the game one at the end. Freaking Whitehead, they both had really good games. Like, this was the Joyner I'd always been expected seeing. Because in the beginning of the season, I was talking about how much I liked him. As Salah was talking about having that veteran connection of him and Whitehead in the backfield, especially to mentor guys like Sauce and DJ, having them back there. And I remember looking it up and I was like, hey, when LaMarcus Joyner exclusively played safety before this year, before he got hurt, he had like a 90 PFF grade. Like, he balled with the Rams. He was actually a bit of a ball hawk. So I was excited about him. And then I was like, okay, I'm eating some crow because he's kind of sucking. Like, he's been really bad. But man, the safeties figured it out, and the pass rush figured it out too. Like, the way I look at it is, and I also put it out for the game too, because I was thinking about it. I was like, well, we have to remember something. So I looked it up. The Steelers have the 5th before this game. The Steelers had the 5th worst passing offense and also the 9th worst rushing offense. So I was like, okay, if the defense is finally going to show, this is the game, because their offense sucks. So the defensive line produced, but in the back of my head, I do keep on how you guys feel. I do keep reminding myself of that this was a crappy offense we played. The edge rush wasn't there before. So my big take is I want to see this momentum, like we were talking about before, the momentum building. Like, take what they did this week and continue it next week against a better offensive line. Show us it can be consistent, because, again, it hadn't been those first 3 weeks, and it was awesome, but it's against the Steelers offense. So you're like, but man, that pass rush was good. And 2 guys I take my hat off to the most weren't getting enough credit, and I noticed that the whole game, Quinnen Williams and Bryce Huff. The
Oh
two
my
of
God.
them were literally like on the quarterback every time they were on the field. Like every time they were on the field, they were either in the quarterback's face or they hit the dude. Like I was like, first thing, Bryce Huff can never be inactive again. Like that's now a law. We have to etch it in stone somewhere. Like I've been calling, you guys remember, that was my guy. I freaking love Bryce Huff. I loved him at Memphis. I was like, this guy has so much freaking potential. And he was riding the bench. You know, he's been in, well, not the bench, well, pretty much the bench. He's inactive those first few weeks. So I'm like, you know, he's getting disrespected. They got to make this guy active. Got to let the guy eat. And he did. So, man, that's my big thing with those two guys. I think Quinnen having an unappreciated year as to play more, and Bryce Huff was unbelievable. Man cannot be inactive again. Just period.
Quinnen Williams only got to play 62% of the snaps yesterday, and Huff was under 30%. That is
nine snaps.
Yeah, that was my point. Like I remember not seeing him play, but when he was on the field, he hit the quarterback like every time he was on the field.
It's inexcusable. And against the better offenses, you're 100% right, especially against Miami. We need more Bryce Huff, and you cannot have Quinnen Williams 38% of the snaps being off the field. It's not acceptable. So that is an area that the coaches have to break their stubbornness. I understand wanting to rotate them more, keep them fresh, but Quinnen Williams is your star. He's your best player. He takes up 2 offensive linemen. He still creates pressure. He's got to be in there more than 62% of the time, and I want to see more Huff and more JJ and more Lawson. Those are the 3 guys I want to play the majority of the snaps on the edge, and for God's sakes, move JFM back in the middle.
Oh, my gosh.
For Jeremy, if I could just – yeah, but just quick, if I could just say, because what you were saying with the rotation, my biggest thing with that, the rotation, it only works if it actually works. Like I get it, but it wasn't working those first 3 weeks. So we got to see the guys that are producing on the field. Yeah, sorry, Adam.
No, it's fine. And this is exactly what I talked about. A week ago, I made a video on 3 things the Jets could do this week to improve the pass rush. It was move JFM inside. And, you know, he didn't have like a flashy game, but he had like a solid game, I would say. Activate Huff, which they finally did, and shorten the damn rotation. Those 3 things. And when we get the actual snap, I got to be honest, the website that I have, I'm not quite sure. I trust exactly what their snap counts are. They have a few players playing who I don't even think were activated, so I think they need to get some new guys on that. But no, there were certain guys.
Chris Trevor
who
took
really
10 snaps.
That wasn't Breece Hall who scored the game-winning touchdown. It was Bam Knight. What are you talking about? But I was really happy to see guys like even Jacob Martin. Martin had some pressure, you know, and I haven't been too thrilled with Martin, but on that interception that Pickett threw to Freiermuth, it was Martin who was really getting in on him and forced that throw, which wound up leading to the Michael Carter interception. So it's little things like that. You don't have to dominate a whole game, but just make an impact play where you need to. Jermaine Johnson had a big sack, which really helped to stop Pittsburgh's drive early in the second quarter, I believe it was. So the more that we're seeing it, the more it's starting to work. And here's the thing. When the pass rush works, it makes the safeties and the linebackers look that much better. That's why we're not investing as much money in safety or premium draft picks in safety or at linebacker, because we are going with the idea that those front 4 are going to make everybody else look good. That's what it's all based on. And yesterday it worked very well. Now certain linebackers played well, certain ones did not play quite so well. But I was so happy to see the it's actually funny. So Saturday night, I'm just gonna tell you a story. It was myself, Buffalo, and Tigo. The 3 of us were on, and then the show goes off the air. It's literally 2 in the morning on Sunday morning at this point. So right there, you know that we're not exactly in our best frame of mind. And they said, and we're just talking about our channels. And they said, you know what? It's like sometimes you just got to have a video that is just so crazy that it's going to get attention. And I thought to myself, I got it. I got to do a video on why Marcus Joyner is a good player. Unfortunately, Sunday happened before I could make the video. And I figured if I put that up, Jeremy would have disowned me, and I think our show would have ended at that point.
Bro, I would have told you weren't crazy in the beginning of the year. Like that was what was crazy to me. Like I was excited about it.
I wanted him back, but I couldn't defend. I couldn't defend it. I couldn't blame.
It
the
was tough
coaches.
after it. Whitehead
could.
too, man. Whitehead was massively inconsistent.
I
Like
know,
those first
but
3
you could have
weeks.
made a point that his best days were ahead of him. I wasn't as worried about Whitehead, but yeah, but Joyner, it's like, is he just too battered to the point? Has he been through so many injuries and been away from the position so long, where this is pretty much the end of the road for him? It's going to take more than one game, but I think we can now safely decide that he is not the worst player on the worst defense in the NFL.
I'm
throwing it to you, Jeremy.
So just to be different than the mainstream media and to assure that there's a clear line between the YouTube content providers and the mainstream media, I was very sure. I made a video last week that said, hey, we are the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL, and LaMarcus Joyner is our weakest defensive player. So in my mind, you could argue he's the worst defensive player in the NFL. This week, I released a video yesterday apologizing and giving him his receipts. So if we're going to be different than the mainstream media, we have to admit when we're wrong. I don't think I'm wrong about how he played those first 3 games, but I was wrong to give up on him and think he's the worst player and he should be benched because he came up big today. And I think that somebody, a Steelers fan who I did the pregame show, actually really had the deepest and most interesting explanation of why that and predicted that he'd have a good game. And that explanation was the reason he struggled those first 3 games and both our safeties struggled was we played against very good running teams. So that makes it much harder for the safeties because it's when you're trying to stop the run from very strong running teams, you can expose the safeties in the passing game. Now, the Steelers didn't have a rush over 11 yards all season. They've been very poor. And now look what happened. After he made that comment, we played a team that didn't have a strong running game. And we saw our safeties have a much, obviously Joyner, night and day. And even Whitehead played much better. And I think part of that explanation is it made it a little bit easier for them that, and a little less decision-making where they got caught in the wrong place because we didn't have that, we weren't playing against that, one of those top rushing offenses. But I do believe that even when we play against the better offensive rushing team, that they're going to get better and improve because we saw the skill and we saw the ability of those 2 players.
I completely agree, man. And again, that's the big thing, like we were saying, with this defense. Adam, you nailed it before, like literally nailed it. My biggest thing was, and I'd take grief for it. I thought the linebackers were pretty good. I felt like our linebackers were getting a lot of shade and disrespect because just like last year, when the pass rush isn't there, they're forced to play cleanup. They're forced to do more than what they're supposed to be doing. It's kind of like when the safeties last year, when the corner play wasn't as good. It's kind of the same thing. But seeing those linebackers, I thought they were playing pretty well. Quincy all over the field, man, while he was healthy. Hopefully, we're going to be getting him back soon. Quan laying those big hits. And Mosley was missing a little this last week. But before that, he's always usually a quality tackler. That's one big thing. Now that the pass rush is there, we're seeing better play from them. And with the safeties playing better too, that's going to be big. That's going to totally be big. So it has to carry through. That's the biggest thing, though. They have to take this momentum, like we were saying, carry it through. Interesting topic, to talk about next. How about Mr. AVT, right? How about Mr. AVT playing left tackle? Like, I totally say, and this was my big take, and I still stand by it. I get it. I get the move. It makes sense. But my big thing was, I don't know if you guys would agree, offensive line's a big thing with me. I'm a big offensive line dude. I see Jedi out there saying we got to get a center. I get it. McGovern's actually playing pretty well. You got to give, again, receipts when receipts are taken. McGovern's playing pretty well. Jeremy, you mentioned it. So many people, like with the mainstream media, big thing with me, I don't, like the backtrack takes. I know so many people like, oh, I didn't say that. Or, yeah. So, I make sure, everything's saying, I stick with it. That's really important. But AVT, Jeff mentions, was freaking awesome yesterday. He was, man. He was freaking awesome playing left tackle. So my big thing was, and I feel like it makes sense, offensive line, if you think about it, cohesioncy with the guy to your left and to your right is the most important thing. How they work as a unit and gel as a unit, getting their confidence going. So I wasn't huge at first before they moved him, with moving him, because I was like, he's having a Pro Bowl year at that guard position. Like literally having a Pro Bowl year. It's like he's having, great chemistry with Max, who we're going to talk about. He's going to be back soon, but that's still horrible. Obviously what happened. Our offensive tackle situation is like, it's like a Greek tragedy. Like Shakespeare couldn't write this shit. Like it's crazy. Like they're just, yeah. But I wasn't huge with moving him, but man, he killed it at left tackle. We just got to clone the dude. Like we just got to put him everywhere. Like I didn't think he could play center, but shit, now I think AVT can throw the ball. Like I'm whatever.
He's gonna be the next Joe Klecko. Yeah, he's the offensive Joe Klecko. He's gonna make the Pro Bowl at 3 or 4 positions.
I'm ready for him to throw the touchdown to Zach the next time instead of Berrios doing it. Like, I'm like, damn.
Can he punt? Man, can he kick? Can he punt?
Yeah, exactly. Like, if from now on, that's going to be the thing. If we lose the position and not do well, we're going to be like, well,
AVT.
Can AVT do it? Like, is that possible? But man, he freaking killed it at left tackle, which is so important. Blindside. I thought Herbig was okay. Like, he made a couple of good blocks, but also got beat a lot. Max, man, it sucks. Like that was rough. I knew it was the knee. I said it, live when they didn't show it. Thankfully, I can't believe, I mentioned it was talking yesterday with Liam. I still can't believe what happened with Tua and everything. There were people putting out like the images of him when he was down. Like that was crazy to me. Like you saw those images, like he was hit to the head. They were putting out like the images of him with the hands and people were like, oh, he's making gang signs or something. I was like, he got hit in the head. Like I couldn't believe that. Like I don't know how you guys felt on that, but that was a big thing. Like I thought it would be like fans putting it out, but it turned out, like you said, Jeremy, it was Main Street media people putting it out. So I was like, okay, I didn't expect that, but man, that was rough. And watching him go down live, he gripped at his knee immediately and his leg kind of might've been back. I know it bent at a weird angle. So I was like, crap. I mean, the good news is it's not season ending. He should be back in a few weeks. So that's really big. He's a freaking staple, man. I mean, that guy, 4th round pick, wasn't supposed to be starting, thrown in the mix. Man, he's been good. We saw what he did against Myles Garrett, setting up the game-winning block. Like, man, so he'll be back soon. He sucked on the right side too. It's McDermott just sucks, period. Like he's the problem right now. So I don't know what you guys think. I think with AVT on the left tackle, that the whole line looked good except for McDermott.
When you talk about, McDermott looked better on the right side, I thought. He wasn't perfect, but he was better and more functional than he was on the left side. That's for sure. We highlight as bad, but there were running plays where he does okay. Like he's not as bad a run blocker as he is a pass blocker. But the truth is, he's not the guy you want in there. We all could agree with that. We don't want McDermott in the game. It makes you question why he's even on the roster and why they didn't address it more when you clearly have a guy you don't even trust to be in the game. I do want to point out when you mentioned Max Mitchell, we talk about a 4th round pick being a solid guy and being a staple that we might see him in the lineup for the next 7, 8 years, 9 years. He might be the right tackle for this team as a 4th round pick. I mean, maybe other teams, I don't know every draft that every team has ever had. But in my 40 years of football as a Jets fan, I don't know a draft, or I can't think of a draft where we drafted 7 players in this draft. And I can't name one that doesn't look like they're going to be an important part of the future of this team. Has there ever been a draft like this? I'm not talking about 1 star or 2 stars. I'm talking about 7 picks, 7 players, from a Garrett Wilson, who might be finally the superstar wide receiver, like level of Altoon kind of guy. And then all the way to like Sauce Gardner, premier corner, all the way down to the 4th round when you get a guy like Michael Clemens, who I think needs more snaps because I think he's amazing. I think he's doing an amazing job. You saw him on special teams. He's a pursuer. He's got a motor that doesn't quit. And Max Mitchell, a guy who could be a solid starting tackle for us, and we got him in the 4th round. This is just an unimaginable draft. It's historical.
We just hope that Jeremy Ruckert has a chance to contribute, but because we really thought we'd see a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets, and we saw that during week 1 and how that went. But granted, it was Conklin, Uzama, and Cager, and ever since Cager fell down, he's basically been in the witness protection program. And CJ at this point, there wasn't Zach did have one chance. I know. He Denzel Mims greeted him there as soon as he walked through the door. But CJ, to me, it's an interesting case because I feel like he had like one route where he could have been targeted sort of underneath. Zach didn't throw at him. He threw farther down the field for an incomplete pass. But it really feels like he's only playing about, I think, 45% of the snaps, but his job is really to block and I think to be a leader on this team. I think to be an inspirational leader. And there were a lot of articles before this game about how little the Jets are getting out of their free agent class. And I just found that to be incredibly premature, outside of DJ Reed, of course. But these people were making an argument just how poor the class was. I read podcasts about it. I read articles about it. It was just too soon to make that call because Joyner had his best game. Whitehead had his best game. So I mean, Tomlinson to me, I felt like I didn't really notice him one way or another in this game. I think that's something I had to have to take a look at a little bit more closely. But I think after a horrible week one, he's been more stable. He's been a little bit more reliable since. But he's played next to a different left tackle every game, I think. So I think that's got to make it that much more difficult for Tomlinson to do his job. Now, one thing I did look now with Mitchell specifically, I know they said it was a dislocated knee. So with a dislocated knee, is that the kneecap? Is that a ligament issue? I mean, not that we're doctors here, but everything I looked up under dislocated knee referred to the kneecap, like what Mekhi Becton had.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, dislocated knee. Usually means kneecap. I don't know, Jeremy, if you're.
Yeah, no, it is kneecap. It was the best possible news in the sense for a knee, because some people thought high ankle sprain. For a knee, it was the best possible news because it wasn't ligament. It was not ligament. There was no fracture. Like the difference is Becton had a fracture this year under that kneecap. So it was the best possible scenario. But I think that we learned from Becton with a dislocated knee. We don't know for sure because this is another big man. He might not be as big as Becton, but it's not like you could compare a dislocated knee for you and me, you as a runner, Adam. How long would it take you to recover versus a guy who weighs 300 pounds? So I think that they got to be cautious. I think they're being cautious in giving a timeline. But obviously, a dislocated kneecap is much less serious and much less threatening as a reoccurring career problem. As well. So it won't it's the best possible news for us because it's not one of those ligament things we have to worry that it's always going to be something that can harm his career and be a lingering thing. This is the kind of thing is he'll recover and he'll be the same Max Mitchell again, ready to go.
And I'm wondering if it's a situation where like swelling might have to go down because, even Robert Saleh, he wasn't ready to give a timetable yet. So there's got to be more that they have to look at. Now, I will say this. I did go on to a bone and joint website about knee dislocations, about typical recovery times for the NFL. It says if the surrounding cartilage and bone is not severely damaged, 5 to 6 weeks of rehab that includes strengthening exercises to rebuild the muscles, restore range of motion should be enough. So 5 to 6 weeks, if that's what it is, and he's back for essentially the second half of the season, how soon would we sign up for that? If he's back ready to go with no limitations, that would be fantastic news. And considering that he's on crutches right now with a brace on, 5 to 6 weeks sounds like you're right, Jeremy, about as good of the news as we could have realistically hoped for.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. I mean, especially because it did look bad. I mean, I know a lot of people were saying ankle. I mean, I remember it seemed immediately he grabbed at his knee. So that's why I was thinking it was that. And again, like you said, Jeremy, I'm like, on the the ligament part, that's what I was afraid of. There's the MCL, there's the PCL, there's a lot of CLs in there. And
Javonte tore his ACL and LCL. So
there's a lot of CLs in there. Yeah. So it's it's crazy. I mean, I was nervous. I mean, Rich Cimini, I believe I don't have it exactly in front of me, but I think he said he'll miss several weeks. So that's vague. So, could be 2, 4 more. I think it's kind of like Adam, what you were saying, like Steven's saying, it's probably a month more, a month and a half, maybe 2 months. It's not the worst. And again, this is a kid that a 4th round pick was thrown into the mix. He wasn't supposed to start. I mean, again, like our offensive tackle, it feels like a freaking Greek tragedy. I mean, right? Like Mekhi Becton, the whole story, right? Like we don't have to get into it, but the comeback, right? Being ready, all the videos, like he's going to be the guy. He's ready to go. Then we bring in Dwayne Brown, one of the best tackles ever, like ever.
And one of the most durable.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Like, that was my big take. I'm like, okay, well, Dwayne Brown's 37, but he hasn't been hurt in 2 years. He's played 2 full seasons, and he's on IR before week 1. Like, you can't make this shit up. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, Max going down. It's like you said, Connor McDermott shouldn't be out there. He's a backup guy. I mean, I know a lot of people. I saw it, on Twitter. Some people saying, "Well, Chuma is better than McDermott." Well, it is what it is. I mean, I wouldn't. Chuma, I was never a big fan. I mean, I don't know how you guys think. I kind of looked at them both the same, is kind of how I saw them. I didn't really see Chuma as that much better. But, I mean, again, Max won't be out too long, hopefully. And, best case scenario, Dwayne Brown's back next week, right? Like Robert Saleh literally said last week that he was working with trainers, and next week's his first eligible week back. Maybe he returns. But even if he doesn't, we signed Mike Reimers. I don't want to crap on Cedric. I think Abwehi. Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
That's his name.
Yeah, good enough for us. Yeah.
Did I? Okay, cool. Abwehi. I know so many people were excited about him, but I hate to crap on it because we need tackles like we need like kidneys right now. Like we need it bad. We need. I don't know why I need a kidney. I don't need a kidney, but we need tackles. Like we need them. But he's a guy that was a former first-round pick. He's played 8 years in the NFL. He's only played more than 300 snaps twice. And in those 2 years alone, he let up 17 sacks. 17. So I'm like, okay, he's definitely not the guy. Mike Reimers could be the guy. Like, he's a guy, he's older, but he was the guy for a long time. So I'm hoping either him or Reimers is going to be ready. Hell, maybe it could be both if we're lucky. Like best case scenario next week, right? Could you imagine we got Dwayne Brown on the left tackle, we got Lakin and Connor, then we got AVT back at right guard and Mike Reimers at right tackle. Like that sounds like best case scenario to me.
That's what we're hoping. That's what we're hoping for. And remember, a couple of weeks after that would only be for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 3 games, and then Fant should be back.
Yeah.
Boy, did we forget about Fant all of a sudden? Yeah, I haven't thought about Fant this entire show, amazingly enough.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
Fant could be back before the bye. Like he might miss Miami in the next 2 games after that, and then it'll easily be 4 weeks. So clear the IR, and be eligible to come back. And I don't know that he hurt his knee any more than he did. I think they just realized he's not effective. They just bit the bullet. They said they thought he could play in some pain, and he couldn't. And I think they said, we just need him to get healthy again. So they're giving him a month to get healthy. So, but before the bye week, if we're back to Brown being healthy and Fant being healthy, and then after the bye week, at some point we're going to get Mitchell back all of a sudden. And if Reimers does well next week, suddenly we're going to be deep in the tackle position.
Yeah, which would again be beautiful because that's been something that's been a problem. Yeah, sorry, Adam.
Yeah. So what Saleh said today was they have 48 hours to make the decision if they want to start the IR clock. So we're going to know by Wednesday if Brown has a chance to play. And then once you do activate a player off IR, he has to be activated within 21. Well, then if they return to practice, then you have 3 weeks to activate him off IR. That's how it goes. So there is still some hope he will play week 5, but again, you can't rush him. I could roll for 1 week with the offensive line as it was. I can deal with McDermott for 1 week at right tackle if that's what it takes. If it means you have Dwayne Brown coming back that much more healthy for the Green Bay game. And then, you know what? That's the great thing about BT. He is that versatile. I mean, my gosh, you could really plug him wherever you needed to. Is there any doubt he's going to play right tackle at least one time this season? I feel like that is like, if I could get some odds in Vegas on that, I think I would take the bet right now. And I don't really gamble much, but I think I would take that shot.
Yeah, and I don't think people are talking enough about it. I don't think on these channels we talk enough about it. Hey, man, ABT took the big step from last year. We got ourselves a superstar. This guy
ABT's been amazing. Yeah, and Jeremy, you mentioned it. You mentioned it. This draft. This draft is unbelievable. I'm going to take it a step further, man. I don't know if you know. I think we talked about it a bit. I put it out, right when this last draft just happened. I thought then, and I mean, it's looking that way. These 2 last drafts might be the 2 best consecutive back-to-back drafts of
Yeah.
any GM ever. I mean, right now it has to prove that way, but on paper, it's looking that way. Like, Jeremy, you mentioned this last draft. Like, these players we took, it's insanity how they're producing and how important they are already. Sauce, I put it out earlier on Twitter. This dude already is elite. Like, Sauce is already the guy. Like, they're just like, we hoped, we knew he was going to be the guy, but it's freaking week 4. He already has he's tied for the second most PDs of all cornerbacks in the league already with 5. Week 1, he had a 42.4 passer rating allowed, which is nothing. We know week 3, he locked down Jamar Chase. And this last week, he was like a one-man show. Like, he shut down the Steelers. Like, it was him. Like, it was crazy. And he allowed a 39.6 passer rating. Like, forget about Sauce becoming elite. He's already elite. And DJ has been amazing as well. Talk about, those free agent additions, but Sauce, already elite, second pick. Garrett Wilson, he looks like he could be one of the best wide receivers in the league, potentially. Then you got Jermaine Johnson. He's producing. I love that kid. You got Breece Hall. He looks like he's going to be one of the better running backs. You mentioned Max Mitchell. Michael Clemens. It's crazy. In this last draft, we traded up the one before. We got Zach Wilson, obviously. We trade up for AVT. He's easily, next to Zach Wilson, you could argue the most important player on this team right now. Like, the best player on this team. He's amazing. He was like the best guard in the league, and now he's at left tackle and he's killing it. So, man, these last 2 drafts, just unbelievable.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say, and I'm actually going to go ahead and answer your question. The 2 best drafts in consecutive years the Jets have had are, in my opinion, 77 and 78. So I'll just read quickly who they got. Now, granted, they were doing 12 rounds.
I'll have to look that up.
12 rounds. They had 12 rounds.
It was 12 rounds, so it's a little different. So in the modern draft era, yes,
that's not something I know off the top of my head. It can't be like, the 77 draft. Let me ramble off some names.
I looked it up.
I'd have to. I'm looking that shit up now.
I'll just run through a few names really quick. Marvin Powell, rest in peace. Wesley Walker, Scott Durking, Joe Klecko, Dan Alexander, played guard for a while. Matt Robinson, John Hennessy. And then in 78, you had Chris Ward at tackle. You had Mickey Schuler. That's really about it. But then in 79, you come back with Lyons and Gastineau. So, but yeah, that 77 draft in particular really, really hit it out of the park. And you can make a very strong case that these 2 years are going to be the 2 best consecutive draft years the Jets have had in their entire franchise history, all 60 years.
Do you know what? You know what will seal the deal? Do you know what will seal the deal and make that a fact? If Zach Wilson is the guy we saw in the 4th quarter. If Zach Wilson becomes the franchise quarterback, it's not even disputable that these 2 years have been the best draft.
And Jeremy, if I may, on that, I mentioned it before. I got a different take on Zach. I noticed everyone, like, it was either negativity or like neutralness. Like, he played well at the end, but he didn't play good throughout. I thought he was good throughout. I mean, I do. Again, we look at the makeshift line. I saw, like I talked about in college, and I've talked about with you guys, I saw the things that made me want him. I saw what I needed to see. Like, he stood in the pocket. He looked poised. He made really great throws and accurate throws. His throws were really on target. We mentioned those 2 interceptions weren't his fault. And it finally showed in the 4th quarter. And again, the energy he brings to that team, that momentum of not giving up. I think, what was it? Breece Hall freaking said, what did he say? He's like, let's go get an effing touchdown. Like, let's go. Like, he was doing the gritty. I mean, crap, like, does Zach Wilson get an award for that? Like, that was crazy. Like,
I love watching all the teammates. He's doing the CBS interview, and like all his teammates are just like Lincoln literally lifts him up in the air from behind. It was just like, man, the wins mean something to this team. I mean, they love playing together. They love being Jets, and they love playing football. You know what? That's so cool. It's just so freaking cool.
Look, and I thought Zach played like his escapability, the elite escapability showed up in those other quarters. The only complaint I had about Zach in those other quarters, like in the beginning, and it wasn't a complaint that, I don't think he's good. It was, I could tell he was being reindoctrinated into like the processing, the precision, like the decision making, being decisive. But that's normal. It's his first game of the year, right? He coming in the middle like that. Like, he had to get that timing back and that being decisive. And I think he hit his full gear in the fourth quarter. But I also wanted to say to Everything NYJ, during one of their shows, I was in the chat and I said, you have to protect Zach Wilson. He's the priority. You have to keep him alive. So you need to move AVT to the left tackle to do that. Everybody thought that they didn't make fun of me. They said it's a good idea, but they didn't think it was going to happen. And I just want to say, hey, buddy, I called it. It happened. Because it wasn't about, I understand people didn't want to move AVT to left tackle because he's a developing young player as a guard. But my point was the priority is Zach Wilson. And I'm so glad the coaching staff realized that we have to protect Zach Wilson and that AVT was willing to move to left tackle to help do that.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. That's a huge, huge thing. And Robert Saleh addressed that. I put it out, right at the end of the game, right? They asked Robert Saleh about AVT moving to left tackle, and I loved it. He smiled a little bit, and he's like, yeah, sorry, I kept that one from you guys. Man, I love that. I'm like, don't be sorry about shit. Like, we want that, right? Like, we talk about being unpredictable, right? Steelers weren't ready for that. When AVT came out at left tackle, I wish they would have panned to the DC on the Steelers side. I bet he was sweating bullets. Like,
I hope he was mic'd up.
What's happening? Like, you would have, if he was mic'd up, you just would have heard the expletives fly, like beep, 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 beep. Like
Brian Flores. I know, Brian Flores wasn't feeling too good right at that moment either.
And that's the point, man. See, I love that. Like, I know he was kidding him, but yeah, man, just that's great. Be adaptive. Again, I admit, wasn't a huge fan of it. My big take was, and I still like it, man, I think Grant Herman's might be a little slept on. I mean, we mentioned it. I talked about him. Adam, I know we talked about it. I liked him in the preseason, specifically in pass blocking. Not as much run blocking, but specifically pass blocking. Especially because, McDermott ain't doing as well. But like we said, Brown might be back next week. And, I don't want to get optimistic, but Saleh did say, last week that he was working with the trainers, that he's pretty much doing everything but on the field work. So should be back. I guess we'll find out Wednesday. But yeah, but with a makeshift line, I thought, Zach held his own in the pocket. And an underappreciated fact, like, we mentioned before, he had to scramble a lot, but instead of scrambling and running, I felt like he scrambled and reset his feet and tried to find open receivers, and he didn't. He had to throw it out of bounds a lot. But I feel like credit is due for doing that. Like, that's a major growth step.
Yeah, he recognized again what the defense gave him, and he delivered the ball where he needed to. And, when he didn't, he was able to, again, the escapability. We showed it again. There was no change in his ability to escape a pass rush and extend plays. Something that he was making plays that Joe Flacco couldn't do in his dreams. God bless him. And that is why you feel that much more excited about this offense, because you know what? These guys, they needed some time to get separated. Flacco was not only waiting for them to get open, but then he had to recognize that they were open. He had to take the big step, take the big wind up, eventually throw the ball with not as much arm strength as Zach Wilson. No wonder this offense couldn't move down the field most of the time in those first three games. It was you have these young, dynamic playmakers and an arm that just isn't meant to deliver the ball in today's NFL anymore. You throw Zach in there. I mean, seriously, again, you give him just enough protection, just a couple of seconds. And this offense, we're going to be putting up 40 points a game a couple of times this year. We will hit 40 if this keeps up.
Guys, I have to bug out now. So I appreciate being here. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday night, Harrison, and when you join me and Adam on our show. But thank you for having me on tonight. It was fun to come on a day after the game and get to share some of my feelings about the Jets with you.
Of course, man. Of course. And as you guys just heard, I'll be joining Jeremy and Adam on their show Wednesday night. Excited to be doing it. It's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, I really appreciate you being on, man.
All right. Take care, guys.
See you later, buddy.
Easy, bro. Yep. So, man, it's good, man. I mean, it's exciting. Like, we look good. And I felt Zach, was better than a lot of people thought. Like, I mean, again, moving well, like you just pointed out, opened up a dynamic to that offense, especially Joe. The big thing people pointed out, he wasn't hitting open receivers. He was a statue in the pocket. Again, he had a bad read, but, like we talked about, it's different. People forget it. When you're looking at it from the aerial view, it's different from being in the backfield. It was a bad read, didn't see the safety, continued to push, right? The team continued to push, just like week 2. We got to win, and we're at 500 for the first time in It's 2017. So that's 5 years.
5 years.
That's 5 years. That's big. 500 is a good place to be. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. We're better than 10 teams, like not tied with. People, crap on the Jets all the time. Like, yeah, make fun of your Jets all you want. We're better than 10 teams right now statistically.
And it was amazing because when being at AJ Gators in Norfolk on Sunday, it was loud. There were a lot of people there. Now, it was a ton of us. There were a lot of Eagles fans. The Eagles fans really showed up, but there were about 15, 16 Steelers fans there as well. A lot of them. One of them actually looked like Green Bean. He had a nice long white beard. I mean, he looked like a killer Santa Claus from a distance because he kept making eyes at us from across the bar. I was just like, oh boy. But yeah, they just got so quiet. I mean, they couldn't even look at us on the way out as they were leaving the bar. They could not believe that they lost to us. And just for fun, with football, I don't know. I get a little bit vindictive. I like to listen to what other podcasters are saying, like what their thoughts are going into the game and what they are coming out of the game. And a lot of times it was like, I can't believe we lost. Well, usually a few expletives involved, but I can't believe that we lost to the Jets. And it's like, you know what? Get to the point where you respect that we have talent now. We are not pushovers. This is a new Jets. I'm not saying this is a playoff team. I'm not going there. But this is a team that should expect to be competitive in the vast majority of their games. This is not a team where halfway through the first quarter, it's just like, okay, how many more hours do we have to watch this game? That era needs to be at an end. Maybe they'll get blown out by Buffalo in one game. You can understand that. But I expect to be competitive and over the course of the season, learn to win these games. They're already starting to. Like when they're in games, they're finding ways to win them. Now, let's see if they can put 60 solid minutes of football together, where they not only have a lead, but maintain it. And you just feel like this was a game where everything came together. We haven't seen that happen yet. I want to find out when it does. That's something we got to watch for.
Yeah, and talking about, the Jets receivers a little bit, that was big. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, but, to tie back to that, the biggest thing was, when Joe Flacco was playing, Garrett Wilson was killing it, but it was just Garrett Wilson. It felt like a very one dynamic offense. Like we saw that time he went out, it was like the offense didn't even exist anymore. So we felt, with Zach, he was big with Elijah Moore, right? We saw that he was big with Braxton Berrios. Figure, okay, when he comes back, that's going to open up. Totally did. I mean, on that second drive there, Elijah Moore had all the passing yardage, and then Berrios throws Zach the touchdown. Like, if that's not these guys are back to play, I mean, I don't know what is. So it's exciting. The offense opens up. And like you guys mentioned earlier, you can't cover everybody, right? I mean, I still think, I know you can only dress a certain amount of wide receivers. The interesting thing with Denzel Mims is, I mean, he's been inactive for a long time. If we obviously got Corey Davis, you got Elijah Moore, you got Berrios, you got Garrett. That's 4 guys right there. Do you dress him as well? It's interesting, but at the same time, that we talked about, trade value of him. He's just been inactive. So if he's just going to be inactive, I don't know what you think.
As far as activating Mims?
Or even just if he's not going to be active, I mean, should we trade him?
I wonder what you would really get from him at this point, but I will say this, the longer you wait, the less leverage you have because it's one day closer to the end of his contract. I feel like if you're going to make a move, you better make one soon. And I got to tell you, if Corey Davis keeps doing what he's doing, there's a chance he might be here next year, and that's another year of an inactive Mims. I think it has a lot to do with what Corey Davis does. So I got to tell you, if you could get about maybe a 3rd-round pick for Mims, I would really consider doing it. I would really consider, because think about it. What do most people say our biggest needs are? Linebacker, safety, maybe some depth on the offensive line, maybe getting attacked. Those are positions, particularly offensive line, linebacker, safety. You can address those in the middle rounds. You don't have to use a top level pick to address that. So if we could pick up maybe a 3 for Mims, I got to tell you, I would consider doing it because right now he's wasting away, and my preference is to not lose him for nothing.
That's how I look at it because I'm like, I didn't expect him to be a huge part of the offense. It's Garrett, it's Elijah, those 2, man. That's the future. That's a future duo right there. I just love it. I hoped, when Zach came back, we were going to finally see the dynamicness of Elijah Moore. And man, we know Garrett Wilson, just unbelievable. Already he looks like he could be one of the best receivers in the league. It's awesome. So you got Barry Ocean. You mentioned Corey Davis. I think they hate with Corey Davis. You remember he was getting a lot of hate for a while. I think it's because when he came in, we were like starving for a wide receiver one. Like, remember, that was before Elijah, before Garrett. Like, we were starving. Like, we hadn't had one in a while. So we looked at his numbers and we looked at what he'd done in college. He was a freak. Like, he was one of the best college receivers ever. So we're like, okay, here's our wide receiver one. And he wasn't that. And he got a lot of grief for it. But I think it's interesting. You look at the way he got paid. Wide receivers get crazy money nowadays. He kind of got paid like a wide receiver too.
Correct.
So I think we kind of jumped. Yeah, I thought about that. And I was like, even myself, I think we all jumped the gun. We're like, man, Corey was unbelievable in college. He's going to be the guy. And he wasn't that, what Garrett Wilson is, obviously. He's not that. We know that. But we look at it, okay, he did get paid like a wide receiver too. That's really what Joe brought him in for. And as a wide receiver too, he's good for almost 100 yards a game, which he proved. He's good to potentially win the game. So, man, he's a good guy to have. And as he keeps playing well, Mims doesn't play. And you mentioned draft picks. It comes down to the guy drafting. Like you mentioned third round, but let's remember we got Max in the fourth, right? We got Michael Clemens in the fourth. So maybe even a fourth is not the worst thing if someone's willing to do it. Because, again, Joe's taking that pick. It could be the next Max.
And when you make a trade with Joe Douglas, you have to pay a Joe Douglas tax of 2 rounds. You got to keep in mind. Anybody else would get a 5 for him, but Joe Douglas will get a 3. You have to keep that in mind. Blake Cashman would have gotten nothing, so therefore a 6. It's a 2-round penalty.
Chris Herndon, Blake Cashman, it's crazy. It's insanity.
It's unbelievable. So when I hear the critics of Joe Douglas constantly going back to 2020, I'm like, did you forget every trade? Did you forget?
Well, you remember, you remember I've been doing my show for freaking years now. That was always my thing. I've been consistently, Joe's been my guy. Back since 2020, when everyone telling me I'm out of my freaking mind, I'm like, I can tell Joe is the guy. The draft, and it's interesting to talk about. I mentioned this in 2020. I'd love to hear your take. You look at these last 3 drafts. 2020 really is an outlier. I mean, these last 2, we just said could potentially be 2 of the best drafts ever. What changed? Well, in 2020, Adam Gase was there, right?
That's one.
In 2020, we can't forget that before Joe Douglas got there, Adam Gase was like the unheralded king of the Jets. Like he was GM and freaking coach. Like it was like he was Belichick without deserving to be Belichick. Like it's crazy.
He was like Bill O'Brien. He was like Bill O'Brien in Houston. There's the comparison.
Insanity. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. I was like, he's Belichick without deserving it. But
Bill O'Brien.
He's Bill O'Brien. Exactly, bro. So obviously Joe comes in saying, I love the guy. Of course, what am I going to say? He drafted that year for Adam Gase's team. And I even felt looking at that draft, I liked what I saw because, again, he was drafting based on need. So many times before with Itzik and McCagnon, it just doesn't make sense. Like I would sit with my dad, I do draft eval. I'd be like, I'd shoot off 5 or 6 guys I love. Then they'd make the pick and I'd be like, what the? Like every single time, like what just happened? Like, so I liked it. I mean, again, Mackay obviously didn't pan out, but didn't have injury history. We needed a top offensive lineman.
Player. To me,
that's the thing.
It's different if a guy can't play as if he gets hurt. To me, that for me.
Too many people hold the GM for things
things
he can't be accountable for.
Right. But also keep in mind, 2020, you have COVID, so you can't do the evaluations the same way that you normally would. And I do think injuries had quite a bit to do with it. I still believe Cam Clark would be a starting guard for the Jets right now if he did not get hurt. I still believe it to this day. I got a chance to actually watch him live playing for Charlotte when they came here to play ODU, and that offense was just insane. It was all built behind the running game. Cam Clark was a capable player. How well would have it translated to the pros? We'll never know now. But I'll say the guy almost got friggin' paralyzed. So I'm sorry. To me, he had a chance to really be something special. And, but to make one more point about Corey Davis, and I've made this comparison before. So if you've heard it before, forgive me. But I look at Corey Davis, I think Eric Decker. Not in terms of the way they play wide receiver, but in that they were assigned when the Jets really needed a wide receiver. They were looked at as the number 1. The first year didn't go so well. What happened in Eric Decker's second year? They got Brandon Marshall. All of a sudden, Jets fans began to realize, wait a minute, he could play. This year, you add Garrett Wilson into the mix. Plus, you see Elijah Moore likely taking another step. And I think now Jets fans are starting to have a little bit more appreciation for what Corey Davis is capable of. He's always going to have his critics. I know that. I've been a Corey Davis defender for a while, and Jeremy pointed that out. But I knew what he was capable of going back to high school, because he actually went to high school about 10 minutes from where I used to live way back in the day. So
that's really cool.
I did know who he was. I didn't get to watch him play because I didn't get to do that. But I did used to cover high school and college sports, so I knew certain players when they were coming through, and I did hear about him. So if there is a little bit of bias on my end, I'm guilty. So.
Yeah, but dude, talking about
but
Corey,
he can really do it. But you could always see his physical capabilities. Yeah, the drops are annoying, but you know what? He knows how to make plays, especially right when you need them. And we have clutch receivers. How many big touchdowns and third downs have we seen from so many different guys? Wilson, Davis, Conklin. I mean, we're still waiting for Elijah to really have a signature moment this year. It hasn't really happened, but you have guys who are gamers. That's what makes me so excited. Not just that they're young and talented, but I think they got it up here too. Not just their body, but their mind also. And that's another reason why I'm so pumped up about the offense.
Yeah, man. At the end of the game, Robert Saleh, he did his interview. And as you guys know, it's, you mentioned the independent stuff. Like I try to do that, as you know, I bring you guys quotes and, stuff from Robert Saleh and from as many players as I can. I'm working, so I try to do as much as I can. But, my independent take is, we joked about it. Like you said, the mainstream media always doing it a certain way, giving you a snippet of the quote because it makes a story. Like it's got a catch to it. But
right, you have to lure them in. Right, we get it.
Yeah,
we do the same thing with our videos. Let's be honest, we do the same thing. You want the attention, so I get it. So.
Yeah, but with Corey Davis, he at the end of the game, Robert Saleh said, he had a good day today, made some big time catches. I thought it was funny. He said he runs his big boy routes. I thought that was really funny. That's like literally what Saleh said. So he's doing a nice job. He's stacking up good days and backing up what we saw in training camp. And that's the thing. Like Corey, you mentioned, he's had some drops. That was like my thing earlier in the season, because I felt like we saw it a little bit last year. Like Corey, he has drops, but his drops tend to be like key drops. And like that was like what would be upsetting. Like it would be at a moment when it was really crucial to make the catch. And then not all the time, but sometimes he'd put up like, 50 yards or something at the end of the game when it doesn't matter. And, the game's over. And like statistically, it looked like he had a good game.
A compiler, as they
like
say on the fan. A compiler.
Like my joke with Corey was like, and it was crazy because like if he can do that, that shows you he's talented. You know what I mean? Like he's showing you I'm a talented player. It was just weird how it was translating, but it's good to see it translating the right way. I think, like Robert Saleh said, he's stacking up good days, and I think that's the important thing, seeing the production from him.
I like that phrase. That's good.
Yeah, no,
and you know where he's doing a lot of his damage is not on the side; it's across the middle of the field. This is another thing that we talked about: using him in the slot where he can overpower smaller receivers. The games where he was at his worst last year is when he had to go against J.C. Jackson, against Pat Surtain, when he was going against those big man cover corners that New England has and that Denver has. That's where you didn't really see him as much. But when you move him across the field, watch how many big plays that when Corey Davis makes a big play, it's typically in between the yard markers on the field, between the hash marks. That is the best place to use him. I know these wide receivers are all interchangeable, but I like Davis as a big slot receiver, like Magic Johnson was a big point guard. That is where I find him to be most productive. Plus, another thing he could do really well is block. And that gives him the ability to run block a whole lot better when he's in the middle of the field. And when Breece Hall, patient as he is looking for a hole to run through, a Davis is a guy who can open up a spot for him. Oh, one other play I wanted to talk about. The run where Hall was running down in the Pittsburgh game, down the sideline and almost crossed. Like he hit the pylon, but was ruled out of bounds. Did you see who threw the main block on that? It wasn't Corey Davis.
Which the one in the third quarter?
I think it was the third quarter. The Jets scored the touchdown, but it was like but this took him down all the way to like the 2-yard line. It was like 15, 20-yard run by Hall. Do you remember the play when they're moving right to left on the screen? I can't remember the point.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But there was one big block.
Was
Conklin? It was Michael Carter. Michael Carter threw a big block and it propelled him forward. And I said, that's what we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen Hall and Carter on the field at the same time.
And Michael Carter laying a
showed that he
block,
can
bro.
block.
Michael Carter's not the biggest. And that's what always been my big thing with him, man. Like, I remember saying it back in the draft. Like, Brees is the guy. Don't get me wrong. I love Brees. Like, Brees is totally the guy.
Right.
But Michael Carter, man, like, I remember saying back in that draft, again, doing my eval, I thought he actually was better than Javonte Williams. Like, I know people think I'm crazy for saying that, but I really did. Like, he had more yardage. His averages were better. It was just Javonte was a bigger guy. So people are like, oh, Michael Carter's only 200 pounds. He's not big enough.
Right.
But if you watch him, and that's a big thing, like I always point out with me, I don't look at weights and measurables at first. I like to watch the player play because you get that thing in your head of like, oh, he's too small or he's too big for that. I felt like Michael Carter ran just like Javonte did. He's a tough dude. Like, you wouldn't expect that he's 13, 14, 15 pounds less than Javonte Williams. But man, Brees is the dude. Together, that's a tandem, bro. That's a tandem.
Yeah, because Hall is always looking for. I guess what's frustrating to me about Brees Hall is, and yes, I like him, but there's two things. One, if the line isn't getting a push, if he's running behind a 5-man line, he's not going to get very far because he's waiting for the hole to open. Then when he realizes it's not coming, he's just going forward.
Well, he is a rookie. You know, there's going to be growing pains. Right. He's going to learn.
Of course. Of course. Yeah, I just felt it was a little premature for most of Jets Nation to anoint him Offensive Rookie of the Year before the preseason. So I just felt it was a little much.
Hey, Garrett Wilson looks like if anyone's going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, I mean, again, he got shut down a lot in that last game, but we can't forget, like, week 2, the dude broke out, and I pointed out, when I talked about it here with you guys, you might remember, Elijah Moore, again, also a wide receiver 1. How great is it to have 2 wide receiver 1s? Like, we went from not having any, we got 2 again. Like you mentioned, the Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker days. Like, that's some beautiful stuff. But with Garrett Wilson, man, even Elijah Moore, he struggled in the beginning of the year. We can't forget that his first drop came in the first week. It takes guys usually time to come on. Not right. Garrett Wilson, man. Like, Garrett Wilson, like, out of the gate, this guy's like, I'm the best.
Once he had a chance. But that was how I liked using Hall, was getting him to the edge, getting him outside, having somebody throw a block for him who wasn't one of the 5 offensive linemen. And Carter was able to do it. And that's why I was so excited about that play. Not even the touchdown, but just that one play. Because I want to see those 2 running backs on the field together to see what they could do. And we got a little glimpse of it. Let's see if they try it again this week against Miami.
And this, coming back to the wide receivers, again, bunch of key drops. And again, there's things to be fixed. That's always the case. Bunch of key drops. No one had huge amounts of targets because of those drops. The most was 5 receptions. But you want to talk about promising. Corey Davis averaged about 15 yards a catch. Elijah Moore averaged almost 18. Tyler Conklin averaged over 17. And Garrett Wilson averaged over 20. Those are promising things. All of those guys, Corey Davis with the most catches and 74 yards had the lowest average. That's really promising.
And the one that was really short was a touchdown. The only one Zach threw. I just had to point that one out. But yeah, and who had it on their bingo card that Braxton Berrios would have as many touchdown passes as he would catches. So if you had that on your bingo card, congratulations.
Man, I don't know if that's a bet you could have made, but that had to be like, I don't know, freaking 1 in a million or something. Like, I don't know.
I don't know why that play always seems to work, but I can't think of a time the Philly special doesn't work. I don't know what it is, but it is like foolproof half the time. It is amazing.
It's funny. You remember always hearing Philly. Now it's always something because, they got to mix it up. So,
right.
But always Philly, man. But dude, talking about, going back to the defense, I think the big thing was, again, finally the edge rush producing and finally the safeties looking good. Because, again, I thought the linebackers were underappreciated. I do. Obviously, pass rush being there made them look better. Quincy's not there. He's been looking good in the beginning of the season. Corners have been elite. Like you add Michael Carter II into that, that's an amazing trio. Like, corners absolutely elite. But safeties, man, they came on. They had 3 interceptions just between them. We had 4 picks together. Like, I love it. Like, at the end of the game, in the interviews, I loved this. They asked Saleh about the interception, and Saleh confused the interception because that's how many interceptions we had. Like, he was talking about one, and the guy's like, oh, no, I meant the one before that. And I was like, that's what I want to hear. Like, I'm like, that's it. Like, this is great. Like, this is awesome, bro. So, yeah, we have 4 pick safeties at 3, and the pass rush was finally there.
Yeah,
Again,
Joyner
like we
Tip in
mentioned,
that. Yeah, Joyner Tip in the pick. The one of 2 times Chase Claypool was targeted in the game, and Joyner Tip the ball to Whitehead, who takes it in for the interception. I mean, think about it. Chase Claypool did nothing in this game. 2 targets, no catches. Deontay Johnson had 2 catches in the game for less than 20 yards. He did nothing. He almost had that touchdown, but an incompletion is an incompletion, Deontay. And
yeah, bro, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think Sauce shut down Sauce shut the whole team down. Sauce shut like the whole team down.
I mean, they even used him on Freiermuth a couple of times, and it worked pretty well when Freiermuth was starting to get going. So,
and that's you're right, an underappreciated fact. He was starting to get going. They put Sauce on him. He stopped going.
Mm-hmm.
He
did. I mean, Pickens had his moments. I mean, definitely good. We got Wilson to Wilson, and they got Pickett to Pickens. So you know that's going to be like a Monday night game. That's going to be Monday night, Thursday night. It's going to be promoted that way one day. It is going to happen. You just
Wilson to Wilson, Pickett to Pickens.
The networks are all. I could just imagine Amazon Prime coming up with some sort of like really cool graphic just to promote that. You know, it's just it's so going to happen. Oh, and the Jets just released the video. Relive Sunday's comeback in Pittsburgh. Tap to watch the Jets Steelers mini movie to see the fourth quarter comeback like you haven't before. Well, I know what I'm going to do as soon as we get off the air.
Yeah, and that was exciting, man. And I think, again, so many people were like, Zach was finally good. My big thing was I felt like he was good all game. I really do. I felt like I saw the things, felt he was good all game. And that was just seeing it translate with better play around him, honestly.
I thought he was smarter.
He made good. I felt like, again, there were not even 2 mistakes. There was that one mistake, that read. And if you take the safety out of that, that wasn't a bad throw. You know, if you take the safety away, which he couldn't see, he tried to throw the receiver. It was risky. That's the thing. It was risky. But I come back to that, that quote we mentioned. That quote we mentioned before, and I thought it was big. Zach Wilson literally said he's got a different mentality this year. And I thought that was really, really cool. He was saying that, I'm going to give everything I've got and live to play with the results. Like, I think I'm going to take chances. I'm not going to be afraid. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to throw the ball. I'm going to wing it. And whatever happens, happens. If I throw a pick, I'm not going to let it phase me. I'm still going to come out and ball.
And the one mistake that there you go. I thought you froze for a sec. The one mistake you could say, the biggest mistake was on that first interception, that Jeff Smith was the one going down the field and being double covered, and that's where Zach threw. So I'll give him I got to get him on that, and he did have one short pass where he just completely missed the receiver. I could give him that. But in terms of knowing where to go with the ball outside of that one interception, I got to give him nothing but high marks for it. I thought he played a very smart game. He managed it well. He took chances. He threw a lot of good deep passes. If Corey Davis, I will say this, if he got that 1 foot in bounds, remember that one play, that deep pass down the right sideline, and the 1 foot was just slightly out of bounds? That was almost a big, big play. That was like the only thing. Yeah, that was like the only other thing. But he put it in such a good spot. It's just Davis didn't come down with it.
Yeah,
but I was so encouraged for his first game in 11 months, 10, 11 months, about 10 months. So that's for true, that, hey, all of a sudden you're not hearing a whole lot about that first preseason game where he played a drive or two and it didn't look so good. All of a sudden, it doesn't really matter that much, does it?
And that's how it always is, man. I mean, that's how my big feeling, I put it out at halftime. Like, I felt like he was good I felt like I'd seen what I needed to see. I liked the dynamic he brought to the offense. I saw it coming alive, and it wasn't pretty the whole time, but it was coming alive, and I liked it. I think those averages, again, just really speak for themselves. But man, I mean, like you said, we got the momentum right now. We're 2-2. We're 500, right? I mean, we got Miami, right? We got Miami next week, right?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure
we do.
We got Miami next week. Tua's not playing, obviously, with that's a whole interesting situation to talk.
That's another show.
But that's that's another hour and a half, give or take. But yeah, we could win that game too. We could totally come. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater is good. That's the thing. I always liked Teddy. Like, even when we had him, like, I really liked Teddy. I felt like you mentioned him earlier, just talk about him. I always felt like he got a raw shape. Like, I really liked him in his draft. I thought the Minnesota Vikings got a really good quarterback. I thought he was going to be the guy. I legitimately did. I really liked him. He had that freak knee injury, but he came back from it. He came back stronger. he had that really good year with the Saints. I mean,
No, he did, and then it's been like Carolina. Them. It's going to be one day. There's going to be a Sporkle quiz, like name all of Teddy Bridgewater's teams. You know, it's like level 1 Teddy Bridgewater, level 2 Josh McCown, level 3 Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's pretty much how that would all break down. But no, I definitely respect Bridgewater and his ability to make plays, but he is prone to making mistakes, to throwing interceptions, and I don't see any reason why the Jets can't get to him. I don't see why they can't, as good as Armstead is, at left tackle. I don't see why the Jets can't generate a good pass rush and rattle him. I predicted that the Jets going into this week would score a defensive touchdown. They didn't do it, but they did have 5 turnovers. I know it was only 4, but one of them was called back because of Lawson's penalty. But technically, it was 5 turnovers. And don't forget the fumble that they caused on special teams that they didn't recover. That's another thing that they could have done. So, yeah, this defense really took advantage of creating big plays, and I think they could do it against Miami. I trust Sauce and I trust Reed to do a good enough job against Hill and Waddle. There might be, I'm sure Miami will make 1 or 2 explosive plays. I mean, they're made up that way. I can live with that. But I think they can handle the rest of the offense pretty well. I think that I feel pretty good. Like I said earlier, it almost scares me that I feel this confident about this game this Sunday. I am starting to feel really good about it.
And it's good. Isn't that good, man? Like, doesn't it feel great to feel
I'm not comfortable with this feeling. It took me about 5 hours.
Feel right. It's
after we beat
like
Pittsburgh, I'm like, did we win that?
It's a parallel universe. You're like, something is wrong here.
I was looking. We scored the touchdown. Bree scores the touchdown. I was looking for penalty flags.
Oh man. Right. I'm telling you, man, right when he broke the play, I went crazy. I was like, that's a touchdown. Like that. I was screaming. I was like, that better be a touchdown. Like, I was like, I know what they do to us. Like, I was like, oh man. Like, but playing the Dolphins, we mentioned, at the beginning of the season, we were joking with Dolphin fans. Hey, we got DJ and Sauce. They can be able to lock up Tyreek maybe. And they were laughing about it. They're like, that's so funny. My question to Dolphin fans, you still laughing? That's my question. Are you still laughing? Because Sauce and DJ are 2 of the best corners in the league. They are easily the best duo. Because I think out of all the guys, they're both top 10. I don't know if any other team has 2 top 10 guys. I don't know if they do. So again, people were making their jokes, but hey, we're playing Tyreek. We're playing Jalen Waddle. Think about that. We're playing Waddle. Man, we got DJ and Sauce. Those are 2 island corners. And that's what Saleh showed, right? He showed it week 1. He said, we put these dudes on an island. The safeties give them virtually no help. And that's what allows them to free up and play the roles that they do and have the games that they did, making those ball hawk interceptions. Man, Sauce and DJ, they got their matchup this week. I mean, they got their matchup. If we could legit shut down Waddle and shut down Tyreek,
the sky's the limit.
I'm
sorry.
That's it.
Who else on this Miami offense scares you? I mean, Mike Gesicki, like I said, he's had 8 catches all year on 10 targets.
I had to put Sauce on him. I mean, he shut down Fryer.
You're not going to him. I mean, Raheem Mostert's doing okay. Chase Edmonds is sort of like your goal line running back. But I mean, Raheem Mostert, to me, he's fine. He's a fine running back. But we're not going to be game planning just ways to stop him specifically. This is not Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt that we're facing here. So yeah, so for me, I'm not freaking out over the Miami offense. Like I said, there's certain players on the Miami defense I have a lot of respect for. I think Javon Holland is a top 3 to 5 safety in the league. I think he is that good. He is that talented. I mean, whether you want sacks, tackles for loss, passes defense, he could do pretty much anything that you would want him to do. Phillips still looks like a pretty good pass rusher. Jerome Baker's a good linebacker. I just have a feeling that, especially with Xavier Howard limited, which from what we understand is the case, he may not be able to play this game. We'll see what happens as the week goes on. They lose their cornerback tandem. They absolutely cannot cover what we have. It's just a matter of the offensive line, how it comes together, and giving Zach just 3 to 4 seconds to throw the ball. If they could do that, I'm telling you, the Jets are going to put up 30. They're going to do it.
Ooh, I love it, man. Oh, now you're getting me hyped. I mean, shit, now I'm ready. Like, oh, man.
How many
love it.
days?
30. I love it, bro. Exactly. Like, wait a minute. Is it only Monday? Like, oh, shit. But hey, we're going to find out about that offensive line, right? And again, I don't want to sound too optimistic, but Saleh did say last week, I mean, when I was covering the presser, he said that Brown's been out there working with the trainers, literally doing everything but being on the field. And we said he's been a durable guy his whole career. So if he's good to go, you get to move AVT back to where he belongs, where he's been having a Pro Bowl year. Maybe I don't know. Just trying to think, and that's the beauty of it. Maybe put him at right tackle and get McDermott out.
There you go. That's your option.
But then again, hey, wait a minute. Maybe Mike Reimers is ready, right? That's the thing. Like Mike Reimers, he's an older dude. I mean, he hasn't looked as good as he was when he was in his heyday. But I mean, heck, I still think he could be a decent right tackle there. I mean.
Well,
I don't know. Right. I mean, did you like Herbig was like, I liked what I saw, but I also didn't like what I saw.
I felt like he didn't stick out to me one way or another. But here's my question. What if you had to have one of these two scenarios, what would you rather have? Would you rather have Nate Herbig at right guard in this game, or would you rather have Connor McDermott at right tackle in this game?
I think maybe I might just be crazy with it. I'm going out of left field. I'm going plan C, and I'm putting Grant Herman's at right tackle.
Okay.
I know everyone thinks I'm crazy.
You're the one.
I know everyone thinks I'm crazy with that, but
it's
man,
not going to happen. All right.
I come back simply to the camp battles, right? That stuck out in my mind. And the way I look at it, Carl Lawson is a seasoned veteran. We saw him get chippy before. He gets chippy with guys that put him back. Like if it's
Clemens.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point, because if he's a practice squad guy, Herman's, then Carl Lawson's whooping his ass and throwing him on the ground. He's not a guy you get chippy with. Even if Herman's gets up, you're like, oh, well, you suck. I whooped your ass. Like, forget you. Like, I feel like the fact that he was getting chippy means he's a physical guy. And I saw that again in the preseason. I just feel like watching him. I remember I was with Buffalo on his channel, and I noticed, I was like, damn, who's that guy playing left tackle? I like his pass blocking. And it was Grant Herman's. So that's just my crazy take, is we know McDermott isn't the answer. Like, we absolutely know. I thought he was atrocious at right tackle too. I mean, Herbig wasn't bad. So I guess leaving Herbig at right guard and putting AVT, or here's the $1 million scenario. AVT's proven he's a freaking amazing, like AVT can do anything. Do you leave AVT at left tackle and put Dwayne Brown at right tackle?
No. I don't want AVT.
No, that's too much.
That's too much.
I went too far.
That's a little much. Here's my thing. If Dwayne Brown does come back, I'm sorry, I'm putting him at like he's played left tackle his whole career. We're not messing with him. Not at this point.
And he's one of the best tackles in the league, which is like the best way. I think we talked about it. The best way I feel like to think about Dwayne Brown, whenever he chooses to retire, a gold jacket awaits him. Like, it's just waiting for him. That's the player that Dwayne Brown is.
So I think we can agree. So on the left side, let's say you have Brown, Tomlinson, McGovern. Then you have the option. To me, you have the option of putting AVT at either position. Now, if you put him at right tackle, you're probably playing Herbig, because do we agree we don't ever need to see Dan Feeney unless he's chugging a beer?
Oh, 1,000%.
Okay.
1,000%.
So you could do that, or you could move AVT back to right guard, where you know he can play, but then you're putting a McDermott at right tackle.
I do feel like McDermott's been awful, and Herbig was okay, and that was his first game. Like, I liked what I saw at times. I also didn't like what I saw at times. He got thrown to the ground a few times, but he also looked good a few times. So first game, excuse me, I guess maybe leave him at right guard and put AVT at right. Because again, now you're surrounding him with a center that's having a good season and AVT. So that should elevate him a bit. Because we have to remember, McDermott was next to him, and that's a liability. Putting AVT next to him might elevate Herbig's play.
That's a very good point. Yeah, because we definitely
being McDermott next to you, that doesn't help anybody.
I kind of like the idea of Herbig getting a little bit more time, getting a few more game reps, and let's see what he can realistically do. If he was matched up against Hayward, I can understand why he would have struggled in that with that assignment, because most guards are going to struggle covering Hayward if that's what he was.
Which
doing.
Is true. Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. So, you do have to consider that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, my biggest hope is that Brown is ready to go. So but if he's
And we do
not,
have Mike Reimers. We keep forgetting about him. Like, we're not even putting him in the equation. I mean,
I'm
do you
just
think they're
wondering.
not elevating him?
I
I
guess
feel
maybe
like you
think
have
Remmers,
to.
so
I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like you bring him to the practice squad because he's 33 now. He's not a young
he's up
guy.
there.
I feel like you put him on the practice squad to evaluate him. Like, is he healthy and ready to go? I feel like he's not a guy you signed to the practice squad just to be on the practice squad. Like, that just doesn't make sense. And again, oh boy, he isn't even an option in my mind. Like, we signed him, but he's an afterthought in my opinion. So
Yeah. I don't. If we see Cedric, then we know everything.
Oh my god! Like, I honestly would
Forget
almost
it.
rather see McDermott because
I would rather see McDermott.
It scares me.
I will
Like,
take McDermott.
I was like, the guy's only played over 300 plus snaps twice in his 8-year career. And then I was like, I calculated, I was like, shit, over those 2 years, he allowed 17 sacks. Like, anyone who allows over 17 sacks in 2 years, I mean, forget GBR bad, like, send him to the moon. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, I think so. Remmers, from what I gather at this point, is more of a right tackle. So
Yeah,
that was the big thing I was looking at. If he was more left, right, or whatever. If it winds up
No, he's
being
more right. Yeah, he could be left, but
So yeah, if Remmers is ready to go, and you could put Remmers AVT between Remmers and McGovern,
I love
that's
it. Oh, that's a lot.
That I can feel pretty confident. I think that's the best case scenario if everything were to come together: is Brown, Tomlinson, McGovern, AVT, Remmers.
And I'd love to hear what you think on this. And this, again, people fault, like we talked about before, people fault the GM for things that are out of his control. We have to remember when he drafted Mekhi Becton, this is a guy with no injury history whatsoever, was one of the best tackles in that draft. I mentioned before, so many people backtrack. They're like, oh, I wanted Wirfs. I admit he was my guy. This was the guy I wanted. By far and away, I wanted Mekhi. Like, that was my guy. I loved what he did in college. Like, loved what he did at Louisville. And he had the athleticism where the size didn't feel like an issue to me. But again, injury's been a major concern. Joe gets that. He's tried to address it 7 ways to Sunday. I think without question, we take a top blindside left tackle in the next draft.
I think at this point,
what do you think?
So if we're doing that, then that's on the supposition that George Fant does not get an extension and we let him go. Number one. That's part of it. If you're drafting then Fant's out.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If you do draft him that high, I mean, I guess you could always draft.
You're not going to have a
developmental.
You're not going to have
guy?
a top. You're not going to have a top tackle, Fant, Mitchell, and Becton. I don't think you're going to have all 4 of them. Okay, I feel pretty confident.
Becton's always a question mark. We have to address that just right now.
I would give Becton. Put it this way: if it came down, even if it was Becton and Fant competing for left tackle, and then you bring back, and then Mitchell stays at right tackle, you could do that, I guess. But if you sign Fant to an extension, I think that kind of comes with the preposition that he's starting. So to me,
I guess it depends on the size of the extension.
Yeah, to me, you can't have
on what the money is.
I don't see a realistic scenario where both Fant and Becton are on this team next year. I think one of them will have to go.
No, that's valid. But the way I look at it is you draft for the future, right? Like, AVT is the staple of this line. Max Mitchell is going to be the staple of this line.
Yeah.
McGovern's doing well, but he's an older guy. Lakin's doing well, but he's an older guy. I feel like, and again, could be wrong, he fixes the Mekhi mistake. He takes the top left tackle with his pick. Who knows? Maybe even trading up potentially, like an AVT situation, to get the consensus guy, and then he's the starter, right? I mean,
personally, I want to get a center. I want to get a center. I think McGovern's gone after this year. I think there's some good centers coming out of the draft this year. Jared Patterson from Notre Dame, highly among them. So to me, I think center's the place that I want to see a change on the line more than any of them.
Yeah, I'm big on my eval. I haven't started yet. I know I've heard a lot about the centers. I've read a little bit about them. I haven't watched the film. The biggest thing, and I've always talked about with me, was I was huge on Creed Humphrey. You remember, like, that was my guy. Like, I was banging the tape. Love that we got AVT. Love that we got him, but that was my guy.
And Elijah
because of that rare cerebral ability, something you don't normally see in a center. So I would love to evaluate the class to potentially look for that, because that was something that I always really liked, to see if there is somebody like that. And again, Creed Humphrey, I mean, it's just insanity. He's one of the best centers in the league. Like he's one of the best centers in the league already.
Can you believe that? I mean,
and this was the guy.
Kansas City was Paul.
If you remember, I was very
and Humphrey next to each other on that offensive line. I mean, can you get better than that for a guard center combination?
And you remember, receipts. People talk about receipts all the time. I consistently was saying, take him at 23. Everyone was like 34. I was like, take him at 23. He deserves it. Well, he's proven it. He's proven it.
No, most definitely. There are a lot of people. It feels like since Nick Mangold left, every offseason we're looking at either the top center on the free agent market or the top center in the draft. Every single year. Whether it was was it Mitch Morse? I think he was one of them that we were looking at. Garrett Bradbury. I mean, he went to Minnesota. I feel like because we have
Rodney was an option for a little while. I was like, he's one of the best centers in the game. I was banging the table for him.
Who was
Rodney Houston?
Rodney Houston. Okay,
where's Rodney Houston at the time?
Where's he now?
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah,
at the time, he was. I think it's Rodney Houston. I'm not thinking of the wrong. I could be maybe thinking of the wrong guy. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong guy. It might not be Rodney.
He's on the Raiders. Oh, he's on the Cardinals. But he would have been a free agent. So he's been with the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Cardinals. 1 second. I just got to plug in. Be right back.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. But yeah, man, hope you guys are doing well out there. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know, what you're thinking, comments, any thoughts you guys have. We're having fun. We're just rambling about the Jets. You can't beat that, right? We're just chatting it up, talking about it.
Yeah. Do you have the Rams-Niners game on or?
I do not. And I was actually going to pop it on in a minute. I just have to grab the remote. It's a little further away from me.
Gotcha.
I was gonna pop that on just in a minute. Yeah, but man, there's so many good things to talk about, like that. But going back to that edge rush, like I loved it. And again, you can tell me how you feel, but in the back of my mind, I just kept reminding myself how bad this Steelers offense is. Like we mentioned before, like I don't have it directly in front of me now, but I remember I think it was like the 5th worst passing offense, then like the 9th worst rushing offense. Like it's not good. So I want to see that consistently keep happening. I want to see the defense consistently get into the quarterback because that's such an important thing for this defense. Like it needs to happen.
And not to look too far ahead, but I'm just fascinated when they face Green Bay. When you face Aaron Rodgers, but no receivers who necessarily are going to scare you. It's going to be very interesting to see if that pass rush can get to the quarterbacks like an Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, but to be fair, it is Aaron Rodgers. Like that's the thing. Like he does what Tom Brady is famous for. Like he'll be like, oh, he has no receivers. Wait a minute, why does he have 5,000 yards?
I know, but Aaron Rodgers made Richard Rodgers get a contract. Okay,
yeah, he can make anyone get a contract. That's the thing.
He can make you and I get a contract. I mean, he's that
possibly.
Good.
I mean, I don't want to take the hit, but yeah. Yeah.
No, and it's true. I still don't know. Now, watching JFM, I still think he was being used on the edge as best I could tell when I could
I'm glad you
him.
brought that up again, because I wanted to, like, in the beginning, like, because I cover, all the media stuff as much as I can. In the offseason, they asked Robert Saleh about JFM moving to the inside, and his excitement excited me. Like, he was talking about how much better JFM was on the inside, how that was his natural position, and how great he was going to do there. I don't get it. Like, I'm like, we have so many edge rushers. Like last year, we didn't. Last year was like a who of what the hell, who's going to be the edge rusher. But now it's like the list is like, it's like we have a
You've
whole
added
list
Lawson, you've added Martin, you've added Huff, because Huff was out most of the season
Huff
last
is
year.
back. You drafted Jermaine.
You drafted Clemens.
Yeah,
that's 5 new guys essentially who weren't here last year.
So I just don't get it. Like, kick JFM to the inside and give Quinnen and Solomon more time. For the love of God, why is Nathan Shepard on the field?
I knew that was
like I'm rubbing my head. Like it, because like I fucking like. Why is this dude on the field? Like Quinnen more. Like Quinnen was getting in Whitehead. It was White Cotton. White Cotton. It was in White Cotton's face.
Aaron White Cotton. I think. Yeah.
White Cotton. It was in White Cotton's face. He's getting in his face. Because he's angry, you know what I mean? Like he's upset. He's a passionate guy. You want passion. You want your guys to be passionate and care about what they're doing. Man, the rotation wasn't working. We're seeing that it's not working.
It had to shorten up. There's certain players, like 1 or 2 players, you had to deactivate. And I'm telling Bryce Huff was not the player to deactivate. All I need to see defensive line. I gotta say. Yeah, and Rankins has at least shown a glimpse. I'm not a big Sheldon Rankins fan, but I got to say, the
I'm with
last
you.
2 weeks, he's shown a little bit. I can give him that much. Solomon Thomas, a little. But you know what? Play Quinnen a good 70% of the time to 80% of the time at this point. And then you can rotate, if you rotate in Thomas, and play JFM a bunch next to him. Let's see how it works together. Then intermittently, you can rotate in a Thomas. If you need to rotate a Shepard, fine. But Thomas and Rankins, to me, those 4 should be your 4 primary defensive tackles. That is
Quinnen
all
should
you
be
need.
seeing a lot
That
more
is
time.
it. That is
Like,
it. I don't need to see Shepard again. And then on the outside, think of what you have. Now you have a lot of defensive ends. Here's the thing. Very few of them are equally good against the run and the pass. Lawson's very good against the pass, but he is terrible against the run. Same thing with Bryce Huff. But then you look on the opposite side.
Not Jermaine Johnson.
I would up until this week, I would have said JJ is the opposite. But now we're
Uh-huh.
starting to see the difference. Clemens is a little bit more run focused. Jacob Martin, supposedly, he's a little bit more pass focused. But you're seeing glimpses from these guys. But now you can rotate the 5 of them all the more. Now you have a 9-man rotation. Some guys getting more time than others, but that's a whole lot better than 10. So
Yeah.
for me, this
I don't know if you
and you
remember
limit the time of Martin, and I would limit Martin. Huff, you have to limit, but you can pick your spots with Bryce Huff, and he can make things happen. We saw it Sunday.
I don't know. I mean, I want to see more Huff. Like, I've been wanting to see more Huff for a long time. I feel like I watched the kid in Memphis. As you guys know, all you guys out there, I've brought him on my channel before. I've had him on twice. He's an awesome guy. Like, I always loved him as a player. Like, I could not believe he went undrafted. He had an unbelievable Senior Bowl. He was hurt for a little while, but every time he played, he produced. He went from a guy in his rookie year that wasn't getting that much playing time. But when he played, he shined. So he got more playing time. How does he work his way to inactive every week? Like, that was just the craziness to me.
I
To
could
the point where,
understand. I was able
Yeah,
to understand the first 2 weeks a little bit because you're facing 2 very run-heavy teams.
I still play him. Like, I
get
Huff,
it.
man. I feel like he can
I
develop.
but I can understand the thinking. When they didn't activate him for Cincinnati, that's when I was upset. When they didn't have Hall on the field or Huff, when they were, like I've said on the other shows, Bryceless. The Jets were Bryceless against Cincinnati. I know it's horrible, but come on.
No,
But-
yeah.
But that's another advantage of moving JFM inside. It gives more playing time for guys like Bryce Huff.
No,
like
and
Michael
JFM,
JJ,
Robert
guys
Saleh
we
made
wanna
such
see.
a big deal about how he thrives on the inside. Like, he made such a big deal out of that like JFM should be on the inside. So why is he not on the inside? Like, it makes sense. He's a 300-pound dude that's more physical. He's athletic, but he's more physical. He's more of a dominant matchup and a more matchup against a guard than a tackle. I don't
Absolutely.
get it. I don't
Power
get it.
and test the guard. That's how we got those sacks.
You
That's
want literally him
that's
and
how he was
Quinnen
so
right
good.
there in the middle, man. I thought it was going to be him and Quinnen in the middle with like Solomon Thomas going in every once in a while. That's what I was expecting, not to see freaking Nathan Shepard or even Rankins, honestly. I thought those 2 guys were bench warmers.
And for all the criticism we can give Adam Gase and his whole regime, we can give them credit for one thing. They knew how to use JFM properly. That's the one thing.
I don't want to give him any credit. I get
I gotta
it.
call a spade a spade.
I get it.
I gotta be fair. I'm just trying to
We
be
can do
fair.
the classic Adam guy, bro. I used to nail it. The Adam could do the Adam Gase the freaking Adam Gase eye roll when he walks out. Like just how do you turn an entire room off to you in 2 seconds? There you go.
You know what we should do? We should do like a moment of Gase, and then we both take a smelling salt and just stare into the camera.
It's our best impression. Oh man.
Oh
That's
man,
much- we
I'm
mentioned
ashamed.
JJ,
I'm
bro.
ashamed to share the first name as him. I am ashamed of it.
That's funny. But you mentioned JJ, bro. You remember that was, I don't know if you remember, we talked about it way, in the offseason when I was with you guys. My biggest take was how underappreciated he was. Remember, I had him moving up my boards. Like, I am at 3 when everyone told me I was crazy. Right before the draft, I moved him in 5th. I was like, you know what? I've been fighting with this for a while. I felt like he was the more complete edge rusher, especially as a run stuffer. I felt like he was the best run stuffing edge in the entire draft. Like, he doesn't get enough credit for that. So yeah, man, JJ can stop the run, can rush the quarterback. I've seen him blow offensive tackles, bull rush them into a quarterback, and I've seen him spin his way around and also work his way into the backfield, hit a running back. He does it all. He's an all-around edge rusher. So it's just he's not developing at a Sauce and freaking Garrett Wilson level. But to be fair, that's elite level, and that's the point. Our first 2 draft picks are like at elite level, and they just started playing.
I mean, and Sauce is playing every snap. Wilson's playing about 70%. JJ plays about 40.
Yeah,
so
JJ doesn't.
We have to factor that in. But one of the things, what I like so much about that sack, one of the biggest criticisms that I heard was that JJ only gets second-level sacks. Like once the protection all breaks down, but he's not going to beat. He doesn't beat people off the edge. Well, he beat his man off the edge.
100%. I would disagree. He has
not
the move.
A chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really encouraging to see, because I see like these rookie power rankings that some people they rank how the Jets rookies are doing. Well, I thought JJ took a pretty notable step up, especially with that sack, because it came at a time when Pittsburgh was starting to get their offense going. They were starting to drive the field a little bit, and it completely snuffed out that drive. Completely snuffed it right out. So. But so actually, tell me. I don't think I even heard your story on this. So, did you think? So once the Jets did trade up in the draft up to 26, did you know immediately it was for JJ, or did you have a doubt it might be for a Karlaftis?
I was convinced. Karlaftis was another guy like me. Again, you can check it out on my channel, the receipts. Right, everyone talks about receipts. On my channel, I was one of the first people back when Karlaftis was considered one of the top edge rushers. Remember, for a while. I was like, my big take was I didn't know what people saw in him. Like, I was just watching him, and I was like, I keep watching him because I just don't see it. Like, I don't see a terrible football player. I just don't see what makes him a dynamic first-round pick. I just didn't see it. I was like, this is a guy that's a second-round pick at best. Like, I didn't even have him in my top 5, honestly. Like, yeah, so I knew it was for JJ, man. I hoped. I mean, I really hoped and prayed it was kind of like the year before. Like when we traded up, I feel like I knew it was for ABT. Like I was on a live stream at the time last year, and I kept saying, ABT, freaking best, offensive lineman in that draft, arguably. And man, we trade up. I knew it had to be him. Like I was like, it's got to be ABT. So I felt pretty confident that was going to be ABT and Jermaine.
Oh, we do have a little bit of league news, a little NFL news that just broke. The Broncos have signed Latavius Murray off the, I believe it was off some team's practice squad, wherever he was last week. But if it wasn't Javonte Williams, the Broncos had Latavius Murray to go with Melvin Gordon. So if you're looking for a running back in fantasy, might want to see if you can go after Latavius Murray. So
it's an option. It's an option.
In my league, where we have 16 teams, I have a 16-team league with the Virginia Jets fans. 16, and a lot of us only have 3 running backs, and now I've lost Javonte Williams. So that hurts quite a bit right now. But it didn't turn out too bad. I mean, I've got Nick Chubb and James Robinson. So now they're my only 2 running backs left. So I got to get one more someplace. So not that this is going to turn into a whole fantasy show, but I'm pretty much scouring the waiver wire for any kind of running back I can get.
Yeah, man. So I was thinking, we'll probably, it's been awesome talking with you this whole freaking time. I figured we could maybe do some last thoughts and, share what you were thinking and stuff like that. The biggest thing with me, I was like we mentioned earlier in talking about, we've consistently been talking about the weapons on this team. We talked about, Garrett Wilson being special, Moore finally opening up this week, Berrios, Corey Davis opening up. And again, how Zach, I felt looked really good. I felt like he was making really good throws, accurate throws, taking risks and taking chances, but being dynamic and opening this offense up. And I saw growth in certain things like, scrambling out and looking for the guy, this backfield we have. We talked about the offensive line, coming together, right? That especially Dwayne Brown could be back, all these different things. We talked on the defense that the biggest thing missing was the pass rush and the safeties. They were really good last week. So you mentioned it, before, getting so excited. I don't want to get crazy hype, but we put all that together and we look at it. Can this be a team with top potential, right? Can this be a team that if everything continues to go right, if the right things continue to click, the momentum builds, we're already 500. We already have 2 wins. We're halfway where we were last year, and it's only week 4. So, man, I mean, this could be maybe 8, 9, heck, maybe even double digits. Dare I even say?
Oh boy, and I thought I was optimistic. And I think I'm so optimistic right now because I need something to counter my misery as being a Mets fan. I think that's basically what it's come down to for me.
Well, you guys have been
But
killing it for the season. I mean,
uh, not this month. Not this month.
yeah,
We
we
only have-
were. You're
it's-
pulling the Yankees. You're pulling the Yankees just a little late.
I see how it goes. Well, they'll be in the
They
playoffs,
sucked
but still,
really
I
bad
mean,
for a little while.
there's two things in sports I hate more than anything else: the Atlanta Braves and whatever team Tom Brady is on. That is where my priorities are, and I'm going to leave it at that. I guess what I would say at this point is this: these Jets are doing things that other Jets teams have not done in a long time. Winning in September, winning in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which they'd only done one time in their history in 60 years. They'd won one game in Pennsylvania, and now it's two. The next step is the division. We said it earlier. Own the East. That's what they're saying at Florham Park right now. This is the first step. This is a game at home against a team that is good, but a team that can be beaten. And it's the second straight game. The NFL's still trying to mess with us. It's our second straight game against a team that had a week and a half break because they're coming off a Thursday night game. And we got more of those coming up. They wanted to bury us. The league wanted us out. Well, it's time to prove to the NFL, to the fans of the other teams, local media, national media, that we are here to stay. We are not going away, and we're going to be around for a long time, and you're going to have to love it. Well, hey, you can like it or you can hate it, but you're going to have to learn to accept it, and that's all we care about.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing, man. Love it, hate it, just deal with it. Deal with it because we're coming, man. Like right now, we're better than 10 teams, right? They can crap on us all we want, but we have a better record than 10 teams in this league. So,
hey, how about after this weekend, we make it about like 16, 17 teams? Why stop at 10? Why put a ceiling on this?
Let's get over 500. That should be a damn good goal.
Yeah. So the last time, Garoppolo almost picked. But the last time, they were 3-2 in 2017, and then they won 2 more games the rest of the season. That is not this team, and that is damn sure not this coach. Not that I'm sold on Robert Saleh.
Let's not follow that path.
No, I'm not saying I'm sold on Robert Saleh. I'm not saying I'm sold on Robert Saleh. But I think, by the way, can we stop the talk about firing coaches in the middle of this season? Can we stop that? I don't want to hear about it anymore. You don't have to like Jeff Ulbrich. And yes, there's some things with this defense I'm not happy about. But at some point, maybe you take away the play calling. But this is a young staff. This is only their second year together. Let's just give it to the end of the season before we rush to firing a coach. That's all I'm saying. Let's be patient with as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like we said. I mean, the biggest things missing, the pass rush and decent safety play we saw this week. I would like to see that momentum carry over. Like we said, that was against a really bad offense. So it'd be nice to see them keep doing that because we know what our corners are. We know, like we talked about, we know what Sauce and DJ are. And again, I truly feel like our linebackers are underappreciated. CJ's always good for double-digit tackles. Quan and when Quincy come back.
Thank God they signed Quan Alexander.
Yeah, when Quan and Quincy, those guys are just missiles. Those two guys, every time you hear their name, it's because they just clock somebody.
I feel like every time number 9 is on the field, he's always around the ball. Quan Alexander was absolutely a steal of a signing. Thank God Joe Douglas got him. I don't know where this linebacker core would be without him. I really don't, especially with Quincy out now. So that was a much needed signing.
I like the young guys, but they haven't gotten a chance. I like Sherwood. I like Nasruddin. I would like to see them because Sherwood look good. I mean, again, our linebackers look great.
I like Sherwood too.
So they look great. I wouldn't mess with it. But those are two guys that maybe could be part of the future at linebacker.
But we know Mosley is here next year. The way they redid Mosley's contract, he is going to be here next season. There's no way around it. He should be.
He's the leader of this defense. There's no one questions that.
Yeah, but I would like to think that they could at least work it in where they could rotate Sherwood and Mosley sometime. Oh, that's right. We're only allowed to rotate on the defensive line. We can't rotate anywhere else.
We're only allowed to rotate. And the defensive line, I mean, shit, it's got to be like I can't remember the game where you move things around so fast. It's like that. It's a shuffle, basically. It's a shuffle. It's like, what is happening? Like Quinnen just got hot. He ain't out of breath. What? Wait a minute.
All right. Well, it's been fun. Hey, so I guess we'll talk again Wednesday night. I'm gonna get going. I think it's 2
Definitely.
hours. I think we did pretty well here. Hope
Love
everybody
it. Yeah.
enjoyed the show.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you guys for being here, being part of the podcast. As you know, Monday we always start at 7. So tune in at 7 p.m. Be part of the conversation. Appreciate all you guys. Thank you for tuning in. And let's go Jets. Let's get that win. Let's win another game, man.
Let's do it. See you guys later.